Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am recording this on November 1st. We're going to be going over some videos and the news, my opinion on it, how to stack some of the supplements to slow down the aging process and boost up your immune system, and be prepared for the fall and the winter season. So let's begin with John Kennedy. Senator John Kennedy.
If your CFO wants an updated forecast, just copy last month's tab, updated drivers, and Brighteon Channel.
Video problem.
No last minute panic before the board vote. Did
Or during strikes in Venezuela, is that true?
No.
That you made a decision on that?
No, it's not.
Very interesting. That was just a short time ago. President Trump shutting down reports of a potential strike inside Venezuela as his war against the quote ISIS of the West strikes 14 narco ships, killing dozens of people on these boats that the president says are trafficking massive amounts of drugs into the United States. Now, some Democrats say that the administration isn't being transparent about these operations involving alleged drug runners on board. Watch this.
When you deny Congress the access to legal rationale for military action, you also do huge erosion of trust from our public. And again, as I've mentioned, you do real harm to the people who serve.
our job is to oversee the use of lethal force by our military outside of the United States. And I'm walking away without an understanding of how and why they're making an assessment that the use of lethal force is adequate here.
There's still a lot of answers we need to our questions.
Republican Senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy, is on the Judiciary Committee and says that he trusts the administration's judgment in taking out these boats. Senator Kennedy, good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us today, sir. You have also said, though, that you would like to see more transparency on this. There was a briefing yesterday of some members of the Senate, Republican members of the Senate. Democrat members of the Senate were a little miffed that they weren't included in that. And I know that you were briefed by Secretary of State Rubio. What can you tell us? And were you more satisfied after that briefing?
Well, in the grand scheme of life, death, and the resurrection, this is not that complicated. The people being killed are terrorists. We call them narco-terrorists because they're killing our children with drugs. They're just as much terrorists as the jihadists in the Sahel in Africa, in Mali, in Mozambique, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan. In fact, the narco-terrorists in our hemisphere are really even more dangerous in the sense that they're killing more Americans. President Trump's doing something about it, and I thank him for that. Now, some of my colleagues, appropriately, have raised questions about due process and the rule of law. I have met with Secretary of State Rubio, who has explained in great detail about why what we are doing is legal and why the people that we are killing are known narco terrorists. If I were king for a day, I'm not, and I don't aspire to be, I would ask Secretary of State Rubio to give the same briefing to every Republican, to every Democrat in the United States Senate. It would be classified, and then go out in front of the public and explain to the press as much as he could without giving classified information what he just told us and take questions. And I think the American people then will support what the president's doing. Look, I hear my Democratic colleagues, and I appreciate it. And to some extent, they're right. They deserve to be briefed. But I also know that some of my Democratic colleagues are not in good faith. It doesn't matter what they're briefed on. They're going to oppose the president on this.
Senator, let me ask you another question. This happened at noon today. It's reported from the Washington Post. And it says that in a letter that was meant for eyes of the Russian leader Putin, Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan president, made multiple requests asking for defensive radar, military aircraft repairs, and potentially missiles, according to U.S. government documents that were obtained by the Washington Post. The Venezuelan government, according to these documents, is also reaching out to China and Iran, sourcing military assistance and equipment to strengthen Venezuela's defenses. What does that signal to you about where this may head potentially, Senator?
Well, Mr. Maduro, who has seized control of Venezuela, is a terrorist himself. He has blood stains under his fingernails. He's not there by popular support. In fact, he has a cartel full of narco terrorists of his own. And he's scared. And I'm glad he's scared. He's scared that he's.
I am glad that we have a president of the United States via Donald J. Trump that's willing to destroy the narco terrorists. We haven't had a president at all willing to really have a war on these narco drug traffickers, right? No, we've had presidents, Republican and Democrat, but the last Democratic president created the most porosity in our border that allowed for illegals and this drug trafficking to take place. But part of the drug trafficking also was to fund black operations for the CIA, going all the way back to, I think, the 60s, but definitely the 70s and 80s. So the problem here is that both sides of the aisle have been not really focused on solving the problem and stopping the drug running. Well, now we have a president that's willing to blow them out of the water. So what? So what? I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care if the president is not informing Congress about killing these terrorists. You know, I think he should take it one step further. He should destroy the country it's coming from. Why? Because it's hurting us. In addition, the fentanyl problem that we have with China, well, this is the same. They're just reversing history and using the whole concept of the opium wars that the British Empire did on China. Well, they're doing the fentanyl wars on the US. Well, we need to stop that. We shouldn't allow that to happen. But it's also about supply and demand. Blowing them out of the water destroys the supply. But there's an awful lot of people in this country, in the United States, that are addicted to substances that they shouldn't be. And people say, well, it's a mental health issue, and you know, some of it's genetics, because you know, certain genetics may be more predisposed to addiction than others, and blah 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 blah. Don't really care. Destroy the supply, destroy the demand.
And yes, I would. He's supported right now by Cuba. I'm sure he is talking to America's enemies. China, for example, Russia. But he's just as much at fault as some of these people driving the boats with the drugs in them.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. And we hear what you're saying in terms of releasing as much information as is, feasible. Obviously, a lot of this is classified to give people a better understanding of what is going on and why. And also, your take on Maduro is solid as well, as always. So it's always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Martha, these people are like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. They're crazy, and they want to kill Americans. And I appreciate the fact that Trump is killing them first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much, Senator.
But we need to be extremely aggressive. We need to be extremely aggressive also on the demand side. We need to have more virtue in the society, not a bunch of heathens. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lemongrass or the charcoal tea tree structural nano silver soaps. You can also get it in peppermint and in lavender. Very high quality structural nano silver soaps. I use these every day. Make sure you buy a few bars for your household. They are great for the fall and the winter season. And also, you can use them as gifts. You're gonna have to start buying gifts for people because of the holidays. A great way to do it is to, purchase stocking stuffers. This is a perfect stocking stuffer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the structural nano silver soaps, and help with your health and wellness. Really important. And another thing that you need to consider is getting the drops in the lozenges. All right. These are very high quality structural nano silver drops and lozenges, and they're perfect for the fall and winter season. The moment you have that throat irritation, take them right away, mitigate the problem. You can get the drops in blueberry and in cherry and also in honey and lemon. But get a few bags for your household. And also, I have in stock the elderberry zinc lozenges. So get a few bags for your household. Be prepared for the fall and the winter season. Very high quality drops and lozenges. All right, let's listen into MSNBC and their take on what's going on in politics. Of course, they're always orange man bad. And this guy, he really needs a haircut.
Into the midterm, Democratic Representative Abigail Spanberger continues to hold a commanding lead over Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Fears in the Virginia governor's race. As Spanberger, a former congresswoman, focuses on Trump's economy and the cost of living, also in Virginia, the state house approved a new constitutional amendment to allow new congressional maps. It still has to be approved by voters. Analysts say with redistricting, Democrats could pick up as many as 4 additional House seats. Joining us now is the president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable, Melanie Campbell, and former New Orleans mayor, national co-chair of the Harris Walls 2024 campaign and co-chair of American Bridge 21st Century in Atlanta. Y'all got more jobs than Marco Rubio. Okay. Melanie, I'm going to start with you. Congratulations on 30 years of that organization.
Thank you all so much. Cannot believe it. It whizzed by.
Exactly. You don't look a day over 30.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. One of the things that I find really interesting about Spanberger, there's a good New York Times headline that kind of sums it up. Republican nominee Winsome Earl-Fears struggles to make a tax stick against Spanberger. When she came into office, I was at Politico and I was on the video team. I did this video series called Red, Fresh, and Blue. And we interviewed Abigail Spanberger. And one of the things she said that has stuck out to me forever is, I'm happy to be labeled as boring and ineffective. And she called herself like a pragmatic progressive. And she has been able to run that kind of race her entire career of wanting to, of doing this, right? She's one of those CIA moms in the past. the CIA mom, little things.
Was she in the CIA?
Yeah, but
okay.
She's the mom of the CIA.
Okay.
So not me. And she, like I said, she is okay with being boring and effective. And so, as a person that lives in votes in Virginia, as you're watching Winsome Earl-Fears and Republicans trying to attack her and attach her to
Trouble is,
Andrew and some of the more left-leaning parts of the Democratic Party, why do you think it's failed?
It's failed because people are paying attention to the pocketbook.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying attention to the fact that Northern Virginia, where I live, in places like Hampton, the unemployment rate is high. Why is it high? It's higher because of what happened with Doge, the loss of jobs, loss of contracts. And what does that do? That means that people aren't booking hotel rooms over in Crystal City, right? And that's a fact that I do know because I live there. And so the economy is really being affected. And so to talk to me about, as a voter first about something that has nothing to do with me. I don't live in New York.
Right,
I live in Virginia.
Right.
And so what are you doing about the Commonwealth of Virginia and the loss of jobs? And because we're close to, and because we're right next to the nation's capital, you can't get away from the fact that what's happening with the attack on the federal government, the shutdown, all of these things. So people are paying very much attention to that, concerned about the democracy, but most importantly, about how am I going to feed my kid? How am I going to be able to make sure that my neighbor's okay? Those are the things that I'm hearing about when I'm not here with you all.
Yeah.
The voter,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Being a citizen
Yeah.
of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Oh, I thought, I can ask a question. I'll go to Mitch. I thought Jackie had a question. So, Mitch, tomorrow you turn the shift of the attention away from Virginia and go to New Jersey. If I understand, if I remember right, you are going to New Jersey to campaign for Congressman Mikey Sherrill. One, why? Why are you going? Why are you going up to New Jersey to campaign for her? And do you think that some of the fretting that I hear from some Democrats about our chances in New Jersey?
I don't normally just cut them off, but I am so bored with what they're saying. I can't listen to it anymore. It's just stupid. All right, let's move over towards Times Radio. And they're dealing with the fallout with Andrew. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35 or the Cleanse. Now, this is a great way to prepare for the fall and the winter season. Take a teaspoon a day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or so, and then swallow it. I've been doing this protocol for over 5 years, every day. Now, if you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two a day, and then go back to your maintenance dose when everything is all clear. And do that if you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, so you can do it prophylactically also. Now, taking the Max 35 or the Cleanse, how it works is you're improving your oral cavity and neutralizing. You're also improving your oral pharynx and neutralizing. You're maintaining the mucosal barrier and helping the health of your epithelial cells. Super important. This will help to boost up your innate immune system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Max 35 or the Cleanse, take them every day, and be prepared for the fall and the winter season. In addition, you can get the vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 will help with gene expression. It's a gene expression cofactor. It also helps cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. You should be taking vitamin D3 every day, but especially during the fall and the winter. Drink it with filtered water. In addition, vitamin D3 has the ability to slow down the plaque buildup for cardiovascular health. It stacks really well with K2. In addition, vitamin D3 also will help with bone density by doing resistance training. So you should be taking vitamin D3, especially during the fall and the winter, to get those cells to go into apoptosis, right, if they're infected. And it stacks well with the K2, vitamin K2. Ubiquinol, this is an antioxidant. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. All right. Now, ubiquinol, what it does is it'll soak up free radicals and help with the health of your mitochondria, boost up the ATP, so you have more energy, and it will help to protect neurons. This is super important to take to protect those neurons. So please take my advice, get the ubiquinol from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and make sure that you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order.
His sense of entitlement, and people saying he probably doesn't even know how to boil an egg because everything's been done for him throughout his life. It's certainly going to be very humbling for him. Will he take it on the chin and accept that his fall from grace is permanent and that he has to now rebuild his life? Well, I think it's going to be a tough one.
Let's begin with revelations from the Times this morning that Andrew Mountbatten at Windsor has finally agreed to leave his 30-room Windsor mansion after it became clear his closest ally, his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, was deserting him. She will not be joining him in Sandringham when he makes the move, meaning the couple will be living apart for the first time 30 years since they divorced. Have a listen to the brother of Virginia Giuffre speaking to Aisha Hazarika on Times Radio. Sky Roberts and his wife Amanda gave their reaction to the latest developments and spelled out why this shouldn't be the end of the matter.
I don't think they can hide in the shadows anymore. I think there has been so much pressure put by the survivors. So many things have come forward, documentation, emails, the birthday book being released. I mean, those were people that were clearly in his inner circle. And in that book, it's so clearly obvious that these people were aware. If they had not participated, they were aware. And so it's time. Everyone who has been affiliated deserves to have to answer these questions that survivors have been pushing for so long. And it is not their burden to carry. It is our government. The Department of Justice right now is sitting on this information, and how shameful our administration has been acting and calling it a hoax. And again, like, we commend the UK because we've seen them at least put light on people, shame them for their associations for Jeffrey Epstein. And we need to see the same action here.
I just want to re-mention, make sure you get the vitamin D3, but it's better to drink it with milk instead of water, filtered water. The reason why is that vitamin D3 is fat soluble versus water soluble. So please make sure you go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3 and take it every day, but especially during the fall and the winter. You really will need this. Trust me.
We need to go further.
And what would your message be to Andrew? If you could make a direct appeal to him, what would your message be?
I think it's time to come forward. I think it's time to reveal everything that you knew. It's clear that you had a very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, even when you said that you didn't. And our sister deserves that truth. Our sister deserves that truth. And if you are a person of character, think of your own daughters. Think of the ages that they were when you met Virginia Giuffre. What would you want for your own daughters? Would it matter if the abusers of your children were entitled or in power? Absolutely not. You wouldn't care what side of the aisle they stand on, how much money they have. You would want their perpetrators to come forward. And that is what we're asking.
That is the wife of the brother of Virginia Giuffre. That is Amanda Roberts. Let's speak to royal commentator Rupert Bell. Hi, Rupert.
Good morning, Callum.
It's good to speak to you this morning. So then let's kind of try to dive into where we're at with all of this. There are various claims around this morning of who tipped the balance against Andrew when it came to the decision of the king. Was it the king himself? Was it the Queen? Was it William and Kate? And the Times reporting this morning is actually the one of the final parts of this puzzle was that Sarah Ferguson decided that she was going to leave, that she was going to desert Andrew, and that's where the whole thing started disintegrating.
I think there's just been pressure from all departments, I think would be the best way of describing it. And maybe Sarah Ferguson's decision was the final piece of the jigsaw. But I think the King and Queen obviously began to feel that initially that this is really getting out of control. And over the last few weeks, it clearly has, with all the Jeffrey Epstein revelations and obviously around Sarah Ferguson as well, all those emails. It finally began to be eating away at the credibility of the royal family. So I think it's all part of a jigsaw, various parts all feeling they needed some form of strong action to actually see they're trying to get a control of the narrative. And it has raced out of control. Will this stop it racing out of control in the future? Well, you've just heard, perhaps not, because there may be more things that come out. But at least it sort of moved him away from maybe the spotlight of living in this 30-room mansion in Windsor and sort of secreted away in Norfolk. How popular that's going to go down with the people in Norfolk, I'm not entirely sure. But what is the King's hands are a little bit tied in this. So he's found him somewhere to live, and he wants him to go away as quietly as is possible. And for Sarah Ferguson, she's now got to plough her own furrow away from being with Prince Andrew, as he is now known, and to get on with her own life. But it's not going to be easy. The royal family, if they think this is over, I think sadly they may be mistaken.
Tell us more about the relationship between Fergie and Andrew. They divorced in 1996, and this is now the point where they are going to finally go their separate ways. What do we know about how the two have cohabited and coexisted in these last decades?
I suppose it does, on the face of it, look quite extraordinary. But the royal family have always sort of teamed in many ways to try and find a way to keep Sarah Ferguson on side. And they were always happy that, in a way, that, and particularly the late Queen, that Andrew was able, that they sort of worked it out for the sake of their own children, and that they went forward. And because obviously Sarah Ferguson's life at various stages has had some colourful moments and also controversial moments. So the royal family were keen to keep her on side. But obviously, if I suppose you look at it, it's good that they were divorced and able to work out their future together. But recently, things have obviously unravelled. And for Sarah Ferguson, she too needs to get away from the spotlight as well. And ultimately, you've got to think, most, I suppose, pertinent, their children. How are they coping with this? Because they're just seeing this media storm and everything analysed about their parents. So it's certainly tough on Beatrice and Eugenie, and I know from the King and other members of the family are continuing to sort of protect them to some extent because there is a sense of loyalty towards those two. But for Sarah and Andrew, yes, on the paper it looked a strange relationship, but it was one I think the royal family were keen to sort of keep on side.
We're also trying to understand this morning how the former Duke of York will fund his private lifestyle from here on out. There's reporting that he will receive a large one-off payment and then an annual stipend designed to prevent him overspending in his new life. It sounds like the King is going to fund this. You'll get an initial six-figure sum that will cover his move from Royal Lodge as part of the end of the lease deal. And then he will get something paid from King Charles's private funds to sustain him.
Well, and this has always been, as part of the sticking point, was the fact that he had this lease on the Royal Lodge till 2078, I think it was, 75-year lease, and he put in a lot of money. So there presumably had been some negotiations as to what the sort of settlement would be. And the King has obviously said, right, I need to get you there, I need to keep you under control, and you're going to be at my behest in many ways, controlling what he does financially. Look, he's going to be almost like a hermit up there because, what will he be able to do? Yes, we've seen him riding around Windsor Park. I assume there's plenty of opportunity to do that, but the King wants to control what he does because what he's been doing over the last few years, it's been a runaway train. And unfortunately, that has then brought disgrace upon what it feels like other members of the royal family.
Yeah. What sort of life awaits him, do you think, Rupert? There is something of a storm around him right now. There has been for a number of years. There have been various flashpoints along the timeline of this sorry saga as well. Has the King ended our obsession with Andrew by exiling him?
I'm not sure if further revelations come out, we'll still be hearing about him. But maybe they're just trying to say, right, he's behind the green baize door and we don't hear of him again. That's what hopefully the King's going to say and wish to happen. But I don't actually see this being the case because if there are more email revelations, then he won't be shut away because there may be more pressure for something else to happen. But for the King, he does want that. The trouble is, Andrew, his sense of entitlement and, people saying he probably doesn't even know how to boil an egg because everything's been done for him throughout his life. It's certainly going to be very humbling for him. Will he take it on the chin and accept that his fall from grace is permanent and that he has to now rebuild his life? Well, I think it's going to be a tough one for someone who all his life was certainly sure of his own status in life and upset people. And what is interesting, it doesn't appear that he's got many friends coming out prepared to support him. So that is also his problem. Has he got many friends who want to associate with him? I do know that he has been doing things recently that he would like to do, but will he be able to do in the future? Will he be able to host, I suppose, shooting parties at Sandringham? I don't think so, because they don't want to see him in the spotlight and sort of holding court over people.
Yeah. Rupert Bell, thank you very much indeed. Good to speak to you this morning. That is Royal Commentator Rupert Bell.
All righty. Now we're gonna go to the Daily Signal, talking about why voters didn't buy the Biden boom.
Armed services during World War II created domestic labor shortages and eliminated unemployment. Government hiring under the Biden administration papered over an anemic labor market, especially in his last 2 years in office. But something else was going on with the official jobs numbers. They were being grossly overstated. Hello, this is EJ Antoni for the Daily Signal. Donald Trump has racked up quite a few wins in his second term, with the most recent being that he brokered an end to the Israeli-Hamas war, including the return of hostages. It was such a tremendous feat that the latest winner of the Nobel Prize dedicated her award to the president. And as impressive as all that is, it's actually not why most voters sent Mr. Trump back to Washington. Rather than conflicts overseas, the bigger concern for voters was the economy here at home. Now, that rationale sounds strange to many groups across the country, including the wealthy elites, DC insiders, Democrat Party apparatchiks like those in the mainstream media, etc. If you ask any of those folks in November 2024 how the economy was doing, they'd all say that everything was great. They'd even point out various official government statistics and rave about job growth, GDP growth, wage growth, so on. But why didn't that message resonate with Americans? Why instead did Americans return Mr. Trump to the White House with not only a sizable electoral college win, but hand him every swing state and the popular vote, something a Republican hadn't received in 2 decades? The only viable explanation, given that voters consistently said the economy was their number one issue, is that the official statistics weren't reflecting how the average American voter was doing financially. Nevertheless, the talking heads routinely lectured voters throughout 2024 that the hoi polloi were too stupid to recognize how great the economy was. But so many of the tools we used to...
Are you struggling in discrete math? Do you have a hard time understanding your instructor? Do you wish there was a simpler way? I get it. It's frustrating. You go to classic sex.
But so many of the tools we use to measure the economy are deeply flawed today and can send what you might call a false positive or a false negative. And although it may seem worse today, it has happened in the past too, under certain extreme conditions. Let's consider gross domestic product, or GDP, during the Great Depression and World War II. GDP is an attempt to measure economic activity here in the US by accounting for and then adjusting expenses throughout the economy. It includes consumer spending, business investment, government purchases, and a measure of international trade. During the first few years of the Great Depression, GDP fell almost 50%. And although adjusting for falling prices meant a real decrease in economic activity was more like 30%, still, that's a devastating decline. And by 1940, a decade after the Depression began, GDP adjusted for inflation had barely any cumulative growth at all. In fact, GDP per capita had declined. But then came World War II, and the statistics changed almost overnight. Government military purchases soared so much that GDP zoomed to record highs. In just 4 years, inflation-adjusted GDP skyrocketed 92%, so almost doubling economic activity. By that calculus, Americans should have seen their incomes and standard of living hit stratospheric levels. That didn't happen. Instead, as doctors Art Laffer and Brian Dimitrovic have pointed out, the portion of GDP that represents what private individuals and businesses are purchasing went down. American standard of living didn't go up during the war, it decreased. How can that be? Because half of GDP was getting blown up in Europe and the Pacific. When the government buys an artillery shell or a consumer buys a car, both add to GDP. But while the latter increases a person's standard of living for a long time, the other is obliterated in a second. That's not to say the expenses of World War II weren't worth it or anything like that. Rather, the period from 1929 to 1945 is a valuable illustration of how our official statistics can fail us and send the wrong message if we don't know how to interpret those numbers. Now, fast forward to the Biden administration, and we once again saw how rising government expenditures can push up GDP quite dramatically. By increasing government purchases on all kinds of boondoggles and other forms of waste, GDP grew even as people's standard of living fell and the cost of living rose. So if GDP didn't tell the real story of the Biden years, then what did? Maybe the best answer is what the average American's weekly paycheck could actually buy. Sure, wages rose dramatically under Biden, but what those earnings could buy fell about 4% because prices rose much faster. In other words, people went backwards financially. And that's if you use the official government statistics on inflation, which clearly understated how fast prices were rising. For example, the monthly mortgage payment on a median price home doubled while Biden was in office, but the government's proxy for the cost of home ownership rose about 21%, or 1/5 as much as reality. By contrast, the inflation-adjusted value of the average American's weekly paycheck has risen about 1% in Mr. Trump's first half of a year back at the helm. While that hasn't undone all the damage from the Biden era or error, it's still tremendous progress in less than a year. But that's not necessarily the story if you look at GDP. Because the Trump administration is rolling back government expenditures, that portion of GDP is shrinking, dragging down the headline number. Despite that downward pressure, it represents a reprivatization of the economy, as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calls it, and a return to the kinds of economic activity that will actually increase people's standard of living. We've seen a similar change in the labor market when going from the Biden to the Trump administration. Just as drafting millions of young men into the armed services during World War II created domestic labor shortages and eliminated unemployment, government hiring under the Biden administration papered over an anemic labor market, especially in his last 2 years in office. But something else was going on with the official jobs numbers. They were being grossly overstated. Just last month, we found out from a record large downward revision to payroll data that more than half of the job growth in Biden's last year in office never even existed. It's estimated that the Trump administration has now reduced jobs in the federal bureaucracy by over 100,000. And that's going to drag down the overall jobs numbers later this year when those layoffs hit the tape. But again, this represents a movement of assets, in this case it's people, away from the unproductive public sector and to the productive private sector. It once more mirrors World War II, when millions of Americans returned home from overseas and got jobs in the private sector, causing the economy to boom. These examples show why we need to rethink how we measure the economy and how we calculate the national accounts. This is something that Kevin Warsh, a leading contender to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve, has pointed out in detail. We are using century-old methods and ideas when it comes to collecting and processing data. We still try to measure the economy the same basic way we did when nearly everyone was either working on a farm or in a factory. What I'm getting at here is that we need to reevaluate how we account for all kinds of productive labor, especially in the service sector and especially among entrepreneurs, small businesses, independent contractors, and people working in the home. If our statistics are going to continue ignoring reality, people will continue ignoring them. I'm E.J. Antoni for the Daily Signal.
I thought that was a very interesting. Some of the data that he was pulling from is called the Federal Reserve at the St. Louis. That data set is really good. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and also in avocado oil. Now, take a teaspoon a day, every day. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get the higher ounce configuration, but take a teaspoon a day, every day. What this will do is soak up free radicals. It's 1,000 times more potent than vitamin C. And by soaking up free radicals, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, even your brain, even the health of your neurons. Super important. Now, taking C60, teaspoon a day, is going to soak up free radicals and bring stress down in your tissues and in your cell. For the cells, the mitochondria will be healthier and you'll have more ATP and more energy. So the cells are performing better. At the vascular level, you're going to be soaking up those free radicals and preventing oxidized LDL and therefore preventing plaque formation. In your neurons, you're preventing stress and soaking up those free radicals, improving the health of the mitochondria. You'll have more ATP in those neurons, and you need lots of ATP to create those neurotransmitters so you have this positive neuroplasticity. So over time, you're going to actually improve your neuroplasticity. Now, for your endocrine system and your immune system, by bringing down stress and soaking up free radicals, your overall body systems will improve, including your immune system. And you're going to be slowing down the aging process. In addition, by taking C60 and soaking up the free radicals at the basal layer of your skin will improve. You will notice you will see a noticeable difference in your aging with your before and your after. You will look younger after a year of taking this. All right? If you if you do like a before and after picture, especially if you couple it with some of the holistic approaches, proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep, drinking filtered water, staying away from sugary foods and processed foods. But when you do that and you just do it on a regular basis, you change your lifestyle and you're taking C60 every day, teaspoon a day, you're going to notice that you look younger. Now, the reason why this is happening is that if you are bringing down inflammation and you're soaking up free radicals and you're boosting up your energy levels, you're targeting those major issues of aging. When you age, you start to accumulate free radicals and cause damage to your cells. Well, if you're soaking up the free radicals, you don't have that damage. When you're bringing down inflammation, you're allowing your tissues to heal, and therefore you don't have as much stress on your body. So if you look at people that are aging, they have high concentrations of free radicals, they're inflamed chronically, and they have low energy levels. Their energy levels start to go down. And then they start to have atrophy, they lose muscle mass and all this stuff. Well, if you're soaking up free radicals and bringing down that inflammation, boosting up those energy levels, you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right. Can Donald Trump and Xi Jinping trade war truce really last? No, I don't think so. Let's listen.
I'm Jason Palmer, co-host of the Intelligence Podcast.
And I'm Jeremy Page, The Economist's chief China correspondent in Taipei.
Today, we'll be talking about the trade deal struck between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, what it contains, and whether it'll hold.
God, this guy's talking so soft.
Donald Trump and Xi Jinping met at the South Korean air base to try and finalize the terms of a truce in their trade war. And Donald Trump, after the meeting, described it as amazing. He even gave it a score of 12 on a scale of 1 to 10.
He then thinks it all went pretty well, it's all sewn up. What did China say?
The Chinese side took its time to come out with its sort of readout, but a statement from the commerce ministry did ultimately confirm that, after months of haggling, the two sides have basically agreed on the essential elements of a trade deal. So that reduces the risk of another flare-up for the moment. And another positive story, like I said, agreed to reciprocal visits next year. But they haven't finalized all the details of this deal yet. And even if they can, they're a long way from tackling the underlying problems in the relationship.
What is the letter of what they did agree on, though? What's in the deal?
Quite a lot, in fact. Basically, both sides agreed to roll back most of the trade restrictions that they had recently imposed or threatened as they sought leverage over each other in the last few months. Perhaps most significantly, China agreed to delay for 1 year the new export controls on rare earths that caused global alarm when they were announced earlier in October. That means that America will not impose the extra 100% tariff on Chinese goods from November 1st, but it threatened in response. And America will also postpone for 1 year reciprocal tariffs that were due to come into force on November 10th, as well as new export controls on the subsidiaries of blacklisted Chinese firms. Then both sides will postpone for a year the measures that they introduced in the confrontation over shippings and ports. So that's basically the 1 year truce part of the agreement. And on top of that, America agreed to halve a 20% tariff linked to China's alleged failure to curb the export of chemicals involved in the production of fentanyl. And in exchange for that, Trump said China will step up its efforts to stifle that trade. And then China also resumed purchase of American soybeans, which it stopped back in May. So, as Trump suggested, it did cover a lot of ground, not everything, but as he put it, almost everything.
What's left out of the almost everything? What isn't covered? What remains outstanding?
Neither side really made that explicit. For example, Trump didn't mention the transfer of TikTok's American operations to US ownership, whereas China said that the two sides would work on that issue. American officials also said after the meeting that an investigation into whether China violated an earlier trade deal signed in 2020 would continue for the moment. There doesn't seem to have been any clear agreement on Chinese investment in America or on America's sale of semiconductors to China, but Trump said that did come up in his discussions with Xi Jinping. Another interesting admission was Taiwan, which Trump said didn't come up at all, and the Chinese side didn't mention either in his statements. But the big outstanding issue is that none of this is really enough to end the trade war. Even if this deal is signed, America will still have a 47% tariff on Chinese goods. It's also unclear how long this deal would last. Trump said a final deal could be signed pretty soon, but he added that the two sides might renegotiate it annually. So that adds another element of uncertainty.
And of course, Mr. Trump has been on a tour through Asia doing lots of deal making and glad handing. How does this deal or the framework of this deal stack up against what has happened with other countries?
There's a pretty striking contrast between the talks with China and what he did on the rest of the trip, because with Xi Jinping, essentially it was all about trying to negotiate a truce, a pause in their trade war. But if you look at what Trump was doing on other parts of his Asia tour, he was clearly focused on trying to build up leverage in preparation for future confrontation with China. So, for example, he signed agreements with Thailand, Malaysia, and Japan to cooperate more closely on diversifying supply chains for critical minerals, which is one of the most intense areas of competition with China. We just saw its export controls on rare earths causing huge concern in the United States and many other countries. And America also agreed to share technology to allow South Korea to build nuclear submarines. So that was a very significant move to bolster the US-South Korean defense alliance. But all of these deals really can be seen as efforts to shore up America's alliances and partnerships in Asia, diversify its supply chains in case tensions with China flare again. So it's very clear that even if China and America have reached a truce in the trade war, their broader contest for economic military superiority is going to continue.
So, as you say, then this recent trade deal really just one of the battles in a far wider war. Do you think at this point that it will hold? What reasons do we have to think that what's been laid out here will stick?
I'd say it looks reasonably promising at the moment, but you have to remember that we've had a series of false starts. We've had a number of temporary truces and then massive escalations over the last few months. So I think there is still a considerable risk that this agreement unravels because of misunderstandings or misinterpretations between the negotiators. And even if it does hold, there is a danger that it doesn't actually solve the deeper problems in the relationship. especially those relating to China's industrial policy. And then there is the risk that some other crisis, completely unrelated to trade, emerges over the next few months and upends this agreement. You know, you've got military tensions, which are still extremely high, especially in the South China Sea and in Taiwan. And Donald Trump just ordered the Pentagon to resume testing nuclear weapons, which China expressed some concern about. So this truce on the trade front is definitely a positive step, but there's a long way to go before we have stability in what is the world's most important relationship.
Jeremy, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All righty. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Times Radio talking about the food stamp issue. The food stamp issue. It's amazing, just the serendipitous aspects of the show. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the very high quality deodorants that I have. It's for males and females. It's dual purpose. You use it as a daily deodorant, but it'll also help to detoxify your body. You can get it in citrus, or you can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. Very high quality, no aluminum, no baking soda, all natural ingredients made from essential oils from the Himalayas. All natural, and again, it's dual purpose. You use it as a daily deodorant, and it helps to detoxify your body. Another great way to detoxify your body is to take the zeolite. Zeolite removes heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals from your body and allows you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. You should be taking this every day. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink the filtered water. Make sure that your environment is clean and you're removing these toxic chemicals from your environment. Stay away from processed foods and make sure you drink filtered water. But this is a very potent way to detoxify your body. And by detoxifying your body, you're improving your immune system, your endocrine system, even your brain function. But you're also helping your kidneys and your liver and your spleen. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite and get those heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals out of your body. Modern society has exposed us to these chemicals, and you need to detox regularly. Another way to get healthy and to detoxify your body is to take the Gladiator barley. This barley has micronutrients that allows you to build muscle if you're doing the resistance training. So this will help to build muscle, but it also helps to bring down inflammation, detoxify your body, and soak up free radicals. And by doing that, you're improving your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, and your brain function. Because by bringing down that inflammation, soaking up those free radicals and detoxifying, you're reducing, at the vascular level, oxidized LDL and inflammation. And so you're reducing plaque formation. At the brain function level, by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, detoxifying, you're improving the health of your neuron. So this is powerful stuff. Take it every day. This is a month supply. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Gladiator barley. You can stack it with the zeolite, and you can also stack it with taking the deodorants that are dual purpose. Use it as a deodorant and to help to detoxify your body. But detoxifying your body is super important to do it regularly. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5, all caps, discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. All right, let's listen in to the food stamp issue. 40 million Americans are on food stamps, according to the Democratic Party, all right? Maybe even the census. But we only have 330 million people. So let's just do a simple calculation, right? All right, let's just do a simple calculation. 40 million people, and we have 30, depending on how you count it, but 330 million people. So 12% of the population is on food stamps? Really? That seems awfully high. That seems awfully high. I have a feeling that there's abuse of the use of these food stamps Or is it that a lot of them are being used on illegal immigrants, illegal aliens? I'd like to understand that 40 million number. How many of them are illegal immigrants?
What they should be blamed for this because they approved legislation to temporarily extend funding. But, you know, you get mad at who's in charge.
Now, stay with America. More than 40 million Americans are, well, in danger of losing access to food stamps this weekend. The American shutdown is continuing. It's into, or about to join its 5th week. Now, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it's called, known as SNAP, helped the farmers to survive the first month of the shutdown, but the Trump administration has confirmed it will run out of money on Saturday. Well, it's a taste of the political row. Senator Elizabeth Warren on the Democratic side. Republican Party is at fault.
This is a manufactured crisis. Donald Trump knows how to round up money. He's managed to round up money for a golden-crusted ballroom to replace the East Wing of the White House. He has managed to round up $40 billion for Argentina, but he can't manage to round up one nickel for hungry children in this country.
It's the Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren. And speaking in Congress, the Republican Senate House Leader John Thune blamed Democrats for not voting to end the shutdown after several attempts.
13 times people over here voted to fund SNAP, but at some point, the government runs out of money. This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. And you all just figured out, 29 days in, that, oh, there might be some consequences.
The Republican leader, John Thune. Let's now welcome to the program Bart Jansen, who's the White House reporter at USA Today. Hello to you, Bart.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Bart. Do share your thoughts. From here, it looks like a gigantic political game of chicken, of who blinks first. But we're 2 days from the end of the food stamps program. The stakes are absolutely enormous.
Well, that's right. I mean, you mentioned 42 million people depend on this program, and it's really got the attention of everybody in both parties, how to try to resolve this dispute. But in the meantime, tens of millions of people are looking to start going hungry on Saturday.
Tell me, in the political arena, then, Bart, where you spend your time, that you watch so closely, which side has most to lose here? Who are the American people blaming for the shutdown and the possible end of the food stamps?
Well, so far, there's been a lot of blame placed on Republicans and the president because President Trump and the House and Senate are all controlled by Republicans. But Republicans say, hey, they're the ones that have voted to keep the government open. There would be no crisis whatsoever if they just agreed to the typical sort of Band-Aid expensing that they do every year, that they don't tend to approve their spending bills by October 1st when the fiscal year starts. This year, there's the crisis because Democrats are really fighting to try to get increased spending on health care.
Yes.
And so that's led to the latest logjam.
Right, so the Democrats are playing hardball here, aren't they? They want those concessions on health subsidies under the Obamacare, the health legislation. Are they going to get those concessions? There's no sign of it, as far as I can see.
No, there's no sign of it, and that's why it's ominous that there's no clear route to fix this dispute. The Republicans say, hey, we've already had, the House Republicans have already passed a bill to extend temporary funding to November 21st. So this funding is available if the Senate would just agree. In the Senate, you need 60 votes out of 100 to clear a procedural hurdle. There are 53 Republicans against 47 Democrats, and so they need to pick up. 3 Democrats have sided with Republicans. They need to pick up a handful more, and those are the moderates or centrist Democrats that Republicans are trying to peel off now just to say, well, it's too much pain, we have to end it.
And is there anything going on then behind the scenes? I was seeing some reporting earlier today, Bart, of some Democrat senators talking with their GOP opponents, as it were, in the background, behind the columns, out of sight.
That's right. There is background talks. They don't talk about it to us reporters too much, but a key Republican Senator, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, has said that those talks are increasing. There are actually 2 key deadlines happening on Saturday. One is this loss of food benefits for tens of millions of people. Another is
it is the first day for open enrollment under the Affordable Care Act, which is subsidized, a marketplace for health insurance for folks. And it's the subsidies for this is what Democrats are fighting for. Premium notices have gone out where premiums are going to double or more for, again, tens of millions of people. And so both of those major pain points are expected to encourage lawmakers to try to find some sort of compromise.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in the past government shutdowns leading to all sorts of blowback for the majority party on Capitol Hill. Is there any reason to think it may be different this time?
No, I don't think so. There are previous Senate leaders who have strenuously tried to avoid this kind of a crisis because it tends to blow back on the people who are in charge. Like I've said, the Republicans don't feel like they should be blamed for this because they approved legislation to temporarily extend funding. But you get mad at who's in charge, and so I suspect that they are nervous about how much they will be blamed, and as we head into a midterm election next year.
And meanwhile, in the White House that you watch daily, how do you read the mood there? Because the shutdown is being used, is it not, by the president? It's being used as a way of chopping up the size of the state, federal government activity. The president is treating it like an opportunity.
Yes, he is. He says, hey, the Democrats handed him a cudgel to beat them out of their own programs that he has vowed to and democratically supported programs. He's already eliminated our Agency for International Development, which provided funding to groups around the world. And he's threatened to cut bridge funding around New York City, where both of our leaders, Democratic leaders in the House and Senate, are located. So he's targeting programs and agencies that Democrats support and say, hey, there's no rules right now because we're in a shutdown. There's no spending bills that govern how the money is distributed. So I'm just going to aim for the things that my opponents care about and try to ratchet up the pressure on them to cave, basically.
Bob Johnson, White House reporter at USA Today. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us.
So we're here this morning for a cabinet meeting as my administration continues to deliver for the American people. And despite the radical left lunatics that shut down our government, Democrats that they've lost their way. They have no leadership. We don't even know who to deal with over there. At least they know who to deal with. We have no idea who we're dealing with over there. So they have no idea what they're doing. Republicans have voted repeatedly to pass a clean, nonpartisan bill to reopen government at the same funding levels. We're not going to do anything only good for healthcare. We're really, I think, become the party of good healthcare. And they keep using healthcare as a cudgel. They want to try and get everyone thinking about healthcare. We're the ones that are saving healthcare. Boomer and Hakeem Jeffries and the congressional Democrats are holding, despite all of the damage that it's caused, the shutdown has been, pretty damaging. I mean, it's not yet because it's early, but it gets a little bit worse as it goes along. And we'll be making cuts that will be permanent. And we're only going to cut Democrat programs. I hate it, though. I guess that makes sense. But we're only cutting Democrat programs. But we're going to start that, and we have Russell who can talk to you about it if he wants to. But we'll be cutting some very popular Democrat programs that aren't popular with Republicans, frankly, because that's the way it works. They wanted to do this, so we'll give a little taste of their own medicine. But Chuck Schumer proclaimed this morning that every day gets better for them. No, every day it's actually getting worse for them. And they're having a rebellion in the Democrat Party because they want to stop. And if you saw all of Schumer's, I watched last night like 10 different times over the years, he said, you can't shut down government, you can't shut down. And now he's the one that shut it down.
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It has a very comprehensive profile shown on the screen. Take a look at the label on my website. This is a great supplement to take every day. You get a lot of benefits from this. It helps with your heart and your vascular system, your brain function, your musculature, revs up your metabolism, and increases your energy levels. It also helps to control A1C levels, and you'll slow down the aging process, boost up your immune system. So take this every day. This is a month's supply. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with just milk. I mix it with hummus, but take it every day. This is a great supplement. And if you're an athlete, take it before or after your workout, and you'll gain from your workout and build strength. Take resveratrol. Resveratrol is something that I've been taking for over, I don't know, over 30 years. So I've been taking this for decades. In addition, what you should be doing here is you drink it with filtered water. And what this will do is help get rid of cells that are in senescence, help with youthful gene expression, soak up free radicals, and improve the health of your mitochondria, and you'll have more energy. This stacks well with C60, clarity factor, ubiquinol, NAD+. So please go to my store and get the resveratrol. To get the max benefits from this, you should be stacking it with what I just mentioned, especially C60. And resveratrol also helps with the basal layer of your skin. This is part of the reason why people say that when you take resveratrol, you look younger. Olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract is dual purpose. It's going to bring down inflammation and help to control your lipid profile. By bringing down LDL levels and increasing your HDL levels and bringing down inflammation, that's going to help with your cardiovascular health because you're reducing plaque formation. In addition, olive leaf extract, because it brings down inflammation, is going to help to boost up that immune system. Because chronic inflammation is immunosuppressive. You don't want chronic inflammation. Plus, chronic inflammation damages tissues. Goodnight formula. Goodnight formula has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. It helps you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. Take it at night, drink it with filtered water, and what this will do is it'll allow you to detoxify your body, you'll be well rested in the morning, and you're consolidating memory. Sleep deprivation chronically can lead to early onset of dementia. You don't want that. Plus, sleep deprivation also speeds up the aging process. So please go to my store and get the Goodnight formula, slow down the aging process, and help with the health of your neurons. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. This was published 6 days ago. This is about students at Harvard that can't get jobs, all right? The economy, there's something happening in the economy. So let's take a look in, and I'll give you my take on this.
%23% of Harvard MBA students were jobless 3 months after graduating. Graduates from one of the most prestigious business schools in the world, with multiple degrees and supposed golden tickets to success, are struggling to find employment for over a year.
1 out of 4 people graduating from Harvard with their MBAs can't get a job.
If Harvard MBAs can't secure jobs, what does that mean for everyone else? According to the Wall Street Journal, Gen Z graduates are facing the worst job market in over a decade. The 3-month moving average on—
Now, they're talking about most of these are young, where they're not, sometimes you may be an older student and you go into the MBA program, so you have work experience and you go into an MBA program. Most of those are getting jobs, all right? It's the ones that don't have much experience and they just went and ended up getting an MBA, all right? So you have that category. The other thing is that MBA is a great, I have an MBA, and but it's a great degree to have, but it is a degree that is giving you understanding of everything in business, and then you can specialize. I specialized in finance. So it'll give you an understanding of organizational theory and leadership, marketing, product development, finance, accounting. Finance and accounting are two different things. So, finance is more, how do you raise funds, how the markets may be traded. Accounting is dealing with bookkeeping and spreadsheets, balance sheets, building up cash flows for the company on let's say an Excel. So you're dealing with balance sheets, you're dealing with income statements and cash flow statements. So it's more of accounting kind of stuff. And then you can also focus in on data analytics, right? That's more like, there's two types of accounting. There is financial accounting, and then there's managerial accounting. And part of the data analytics route is off of that managerial accounting, where you want to look at what's going on in the business and report and interpret and use those as metrics. So the overall, basically, an MBA is to give you all these different tools and understandings of different groups in a business, and then you can specialize. All right. It's a great degree if you want a more generalist approach. I think the reason why MBAs are not being employed as much as before is that there's more of a focus on specifics in AI and in data analytics. So if you have a MBA versus someone that has a master's in data analytics, if you're looking for someone just for data analytics, the master's in data analytics is going to be a better pick. But if you're looking for someone that is more holistic with a specialty in data analytics or a specialty in managerial accounting, then you're going to have a better fit with picking the MBA if you want that individual to do more than just data analytics. Maybe an employee that you want to cultivate and have them move up the corporate ladder over time. You mentor that employee. The MBA is the better pick for that. But if you're just looking for a task-oriented type person in data analytics or just accounting or just in marketing, then you're better off just getting a person in a master's or even an undergrad in those subject matters instead of an MBA. Now, what also an MBA can do is do business planning and FP&A, financial planning and analysis. That's a big part of their skill set. Data analytics can do some of that FP&A, but they may not know how to do a business plan. They may not know how to, so an MBA knows how to do a business plan and knows how to do a, fundraising for seed rounds for a company or the ins and outs of a leveraged buyout. So mergers and acquisitions are more in the realm of an MBA than, let's say, a data analyst. So I think that there is a shift to not have those types of skill sets, more generalist in the business world, and it's more a specialist in data analytics or maybe even in AI. I think you can probably nowadays specialize in AI as a subspecialty within the MBA program in some MBA programs, but that wasn't available when I had my MBA. So, when I received my MBA. So I think there's a shift that's going on, that it's more focused on tasks and not so much on an individual that has the holistic approach and all the different tools to actually manage a company. A data analyst isn't going to be able to manage a company. An MBA is going to be able to manage a company. An MBA that specialized in data analytics could do basically everything that the data analyst can do, but the data analyst can't do everything the MBA can do. So I think that having an MBA is really important, but I think there's a shift in how these companies are hiring. and it's task oriented. Now, maybe it's to train AI, I'm not sure. But the thing is that there's definitely a shift. So when you're young and you're getting an MBA, you're assuming that you're going to be working for a big corporation, let's say like JP Morgan. Well, they have too many managers. So why do they need to hire the MBA? Or a consultant. McKinsey's saying that they're using AI and they don't need entry-level MBAs. So technology is also hurting the MBA on top of it. So these MBAs that wanted to get plugged into the gold, they called it the golden ticket. What's going to happen is that you have to build your own business. So if you got an MBA now, you need to use all those skill sets and build your own business. Now, maybe it's something small and it's not techie. Maybe it's a franchise that you build up. Maybe it's, a pizzeria, whatever. But the thing is that you need to take your skill sets and stop thinking that you're going to work for McKinsey and work for JP Morgan. Take the skill sets and build your own business, whatever it is, in manufacturing, in the service sector, whatever it is. Now, the thing is a lot of these kids that are coming out of the MBA program, they don't have any skill sets, so they don't even know what to build. They don't even know what kind of business to make. So everyone wants to be a tech bro. Software is going to die because of AI. So the idea of building businesses around software, that's so passe. I mean, you can see it, the writing's on the wall. Software will be dead. So these individuals are going to have to stop thinking you're going to be working for a big company, a prestigious company. You're going to have to take the skill sets and you actually have to build your business. Now, those MBAs are actually better off than the ones that are just data analytics or someone that just had a marketing degree or an accounting degree. The reason being is those individuals that just have an accounting degree or marketing degree or data analytic degree don't have the skill sets to actually build a business. So it's a different mindset. All right. So let's continue with what's going on. Oh, wait. So let me add one other thing. Another part of the problem with the Ivy League and the Ivy League Plus was because of the blowback with everything that was happening during the protests from 2023, 2024. They're blackballed. So these prestigious companies aren't going to be hiring a certain cohort group out of these schools. That's another issue. Oh, and then
Employment rate for recent graduates currently sits at around 5%.
I'll shut up after this. And then there's a structural change that's happening with the entry level in companies because of AI.
Above the national average of 4.2%. This represents a rare reversal, one of the few times in decades that unemployment among new grads has exceeded the general rate. For college graduates specifically, the unemployment rate has climbed to levels not seen since the pandemic. Here's where it gets strange. While many employers say they're struggling to fill vacancies, the second highest rate in 2 decades, graduates can't seem to land interviews, let alone jobs. A 2022 study of over 300 job applications submitted by departing interns found that only 12% received any response from employers. 5% expressed interest in the applicant. Not a single application resulted in a hire. Employers were actually more likely to ghost candidates if the graduate met over 90% of the listed requirements. The disconnect between available jobs and actual hiring reveals something more troubling. So-called ghost jobs have flooded the American labor market. Surveys conducted in 2024 found that roughly 1/3 of recruiters admitted their organization had posted job listings that weren't actively being filled, usually to build a talent pool or project growth. Analysts found that a significant share.
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform.
Analysts found that a significant share of US job postings, possibly 1 in 4, were inactive at any given time. These aren't just outdated listings or clerical errors. In some cases, they're deliberate. More than half of companies posting ghost jobs said they did so to make employees believe relief was coming. Others said it helped maintain the appearance of company growth during uncertain times. Some even admitted to interviewing candidates for roles that didn't actually exist.
What's not talked about enough are ghost jobs. Because I probably spent more than half of my time applying to summer jobs and internships on LinkedIn, Web, Indeed, applying to ghost jobs.
The practice has grown so widespread that a 2025 Congressional Research Service report analyzed it as an emerging labor issue. Yet despite growing attention from lawmakers, there's still no federal regulation targeting ghost listings. The manipulation doesn't end there. Almost every major company now uses applicant tracking systems that automatically reject most resumes before a human ever looks at them. These systems hunt for keywords and rank every resume like a search engine ranks web pages. If your CV doesn't include the exact words used in the job description, or if your formatting confuses the system, you're instantly dropped to the bottom of the pile, no matter how qualified you are. The human connection that once defined hiring has been reduced to algorithms and automation. Out of 3.8 million jobs on LinkedIn, nearly 40% of entry-level positions required 3 to 5 years of experience. A study by Generation, a nonprofit network, found that 94% of employers surveyed across 8 countries, including the US, required applicants for entry-level tech jobs to already have relevant experience. In the last 5 years alone, there's been a 20% increase in the number of skills required on job listings. Entry-level no longer means entry-level. This impossible standard forces graduates into a devastating cycle. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to gain experience.
More often than not, it's literally just rejection, rejection, rejection.
Sorry, you need 3 years of experience. Actually, I was inquiring about the entry-level position. You need 3 years of experience for that job.
The only escape route is internships, and competition for these positions has intensified dramatically. Companies such as ServiceNow reported a 50% increase in internship applications, while Citadel saw applications rise by 65%, ultimately accepting just 300 of the 69,000 applications it received. The cruel twist? 47% of internships in 2022 were unpaid, creating a new form of economic stratification. Paid interns averaged 1.4 job offers post-graduation, while unpaid interns averaged less than 1. This effectively proves that even if you go to college, land an internship, and graduate, your chances of securing a job are severely limited if the internship was unpaid. In the recruiter's eyes, an unpaid internship offers little more credibility than a short-term service job. The hiring freeze extends beyond manipulative practices. Economic uncertainty has created what Deutsche Bank economist Brett Ryan calls a low hiring but low firing environment. Harvard economist David Deming explains that young workers are seen as investments, and in uncertain times, investments are the first thing businesses cut back on. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, hiring in the United States has slowed to its weakest pace in years, and job cuts are up nearly 50% year on year. Even MBA graduates from elite schools like Wharton and Stanford are struggling to land jobs. The career ladder that once offered upward mobility has been systematically dismantled. Unlike America's post-war economic expansion, where hard work truly did provide stable careers, only about a quarter of current vacancies are now filled with internal candidates, a steep decline over the last 50 years. Companies now rely more on outside hiring, often favoring those who already have years of work experience. The United States spends.
So we gotta get to the facts. Maybe we can calm down a little.
Talk to each other more.
That's what the news is supposed to do.
LinkedIn Recruiter, a hiring platform that lets you hire smarter and faster. You can simplify your hiring process with these smart features. It has.
The United States spends less than 0.1% of GDP on active labor market programs like job training, employment incentives, and public hiring initiatives, far less than most developed nations. Artificial intelligence is accelerating this crisis. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei and other tech leaders have warned that rapid advances in automation could eliminate a large share of entry-level roles within the next 5 years. Goldman Sachs predicted in 2023 that AI could disrupt or displace up to 300 million jobs worldwide. Some tech companies aren't even bothering to hire junior developers anymore, choosing instead to focus on mid-level roles. Despite those estimates, AI and automation together are projected to reshape tens of millions of positions by 2030. What's been in the spotlight recently is the H-1B visa program and Trump's new move to overhaul it. Just this past September, his administration proposed a $100,000 fee on every new H-1B application, one of the biggest shifts in U.S. immigration and labor policy in decades. The policy is already facing legal challenges from industry groups. Here's why this matters for American graduates. What began as a program designed to bring specialized foreign talent to fill genuine skill gaps gradually transformed into something else entirely. Companies discovered they could use H-1B workers for entry-level tech positions, the exact roles that used to be stepping stones for recent American graduates. Picture a computer science major, freshly out of university with student debt, hoping to start a career in tech, only to find that the junior developer positions they trained for have been outsourced or filled by imported labor willing to work for less. Trump's policy could fundamentally change this dynamic. A six-figure visa fee makes hiring foreign workers far less attractive than developing homegrown talent. This should force tech companies to look at the pool of qualified American graduates they've been overlooking, offering them real opportunities with competitive wages. But there's another possibility.
I saw this in automotive. What was happening, and it wasn't just entry level. What I saw is that right when about 2000, 2001, there was a big push for H-1B for engineers coming from India. And they could hire four Indian engineers to the cost of an experienced American engineer. And so what was happening is that there was technology transfer with the experienced engineers having to work with the Indian engineers while they were in the United States. And then eventually they took this over to India to continue on trying to compete with other industries. Now that was in automotive. Now this was also happening during the dot-com days of 2000, in 1999, 2000, 2001. It's the same time period where there were lots of need to build up websites and then in tech and write HTML and all this stuff back then. And there were visa holders coming in to help. But at that time, it was a growing industry and they didn't have enough workers. In automotive, they had plenty of workers. They were just trying to find a way to cut costs. So now, fast forward to where we're at today. Same issue that's taking place. So to stop the labor arbitrage with the H-1B visa holders, you need to curtail the H-1B visa program and make it more expensive. And therefore, they'll start hiring American workers. Most of these H-1B visa holders don't have skill sets that are any more than a domestic student. Most of them are Oppenheimer coming in with such unique skill sets that no one that's coming out of the universities have. That's total BS, especially in any form of engineering. Nuclear, chemical, pharmaceutical, mechanical, doesn't matter. All right, any of the tech, it doesn't matter. Most of the H-1B visa holders do not have a unique skill set that they can't find in an American grad. But they play the labor arbitrage. On top of it, when you have an H-1B visa holder, that employee is most likely to stay with that company longer because they're being sponsored.
When to the US becomes prohibitively expensive, companies might simply move entire departments overseas. The same outsourcing that gutted manufacturing towns across America could now reach white-collar jobs. Instead of H-1B workers coming here, the jobs themselves could disappear abroad, to India, Eastern Europe, Latin America, anywhere labor is cheaper and immigration policies are irrelevant.
Yep.
So we're left with a question that will define the next decade for American graduates.
I'm telling you, it's about you got to think like an immigrant, in the sense people aren't going to hire you, and you have to build your own business. That's how you're going to survive this. You take the skill sets that you have, find where your gaps are, learn something, and build a business. So if you're a new grad, stop thinking that you're going to be working for a company. You need to pull up the bootstraps and work hard and build a business. And some of you are going to fail. Some of them you are going to succeed. And stop thinking that you're going to hit the lottery and be a tech bro. You got to start thinking what's stable for your community. Whatever that community is, it may be local, it may be on the internet, whatever that community is. But build a business and build a high quality service or product and move forward. That's the way to survive this. You got to start thinking like what immigrants were thinking of back in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. All right? Because when immigrants came over into the United States, there were a lot of hurdles for them to get employed. And most of them became merchants. They built a business somehow in some way. And eventually their kids ended up, having the more prestigious jobs. And that's been almost true in most of American history. But now, you may be an American, you maybe have been born here or naturalized somehow. But the bottom line is this: stop thinking that your job is going to be working at McKinsey or Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. Your life is dependent on, will you be able to take your skill sets and build a business? If not, you're probably going to fail. You're probably going to fail in life, financially. So stop filling out resumes. Build a business.
Will this policy restore balance, giving young Americans a fair shot at the careers they trained for? Or will it push opportunities further out of reach, replacing one form of displacement with another, offshoring instead of visa programs, with the same result for graduates desperately trying to start their careers? Despite growing concern and a Congressional Research Service report acknowledging ghost job listings, no comprehensive federal legislation has yet addressed the issue. Job scams and employment fraud grew from $90 million in reported losses in 2020 to more than $500 million in 2024. And several states, including New Jersey, Kentucky, and California, have proposed bills to tackle fake ads, but none have yet become law. The job market has been systematically reshaped, leaving an entire generation overqualified, underpaid, and fighting for opportunities that increasingly don't exist.
Want more videos like this? Subscribe to Mac Hard for weekly AI updates and leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Another morning to savor the crunchy nooks and cranny splendor of a Thomas's English muffin.
Tom, which is a nook and which is a cranny?
But it's a big problem with the youth today, and also individuals that are maybe a little bit older and have a lot of skill sets, and then corporate America doesn't want you anymore. It's a big problem. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will soak up free radicals, detoxify your body, and bring down inflammation. That will help with your immune system, your endocrine system, even your joint health, your vascular system, brain function. Make sure that you take this every day. Or the Gladiator barley. Now, the difference between this and the Gladiator barley is the Gladiator barley also helps with building muscle. This is a month supply. Take it every day. Really important. Also, take this stack for the foundation to slow down the aging process. The complete multivitamin has the multivitamins that you need for proper enzymatic activity so your cells perform properly, so you have the proper cellular metabolism. And a probiotic, either VeggieCap version or the powdered version, take them, either one. Drink filtered water, and that will help with your gut biome. That will allow you to absorb your nutrients better. You'll have a better immune system at your gut level. You'll reduce leaky gut syndrome. You'll improve the communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. so your metabolism will improve, you will sleep better, you'll be detoxifying your central nervous system, and you'll be consolidating memory and getting rid of that brain fog so you can concentrate. In addition, a good gut biome will manifest in good skin health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotic either in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. Both are very high quality. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. Make sure you use discount 5. All right, let's listen into economy media here.
Gen Zers are on the brink of professional extinction. In June, the unemployment rate among recent graduates was 8.6%, far above the general unemployment rate.
Gen Z is facing the worst unemployment rate in decades.
These university grads will have to deal with one of the worst job markets in years.
And the young people of Generation Z are experiencing it firsthand.
I must have started applying for jobs in April, and I've sent 85 job applications since. It's been really difficult.
This has sparked a widespread feeling of being disqualified.
It made me feel like I was unqualified for any job in journalism, like maybe I wasn't good enough.
The experience has definitely been discouraging.
And the data supports it. Compared with their parents, today's youth face a labor market much more complex than 40 years ago.
Graduates between the ages of 15 and 24 are facing the highest unemployment rate this country has seen since the mid-90s.
This has generalized the perception of a lack of job opportunities, especially among the youngest and most inexperienced. So why is it so difficult for Gen Zers to get a job? The difficulties.
It's every Nanny Polly. How are you holding up? The kids? The stress?
I'm managing.
No, that's not true.
You're about to pop. What do you mean? The difficulties faced by Generation Z in securing stable employment stem from a mix of economic, business, and political factors. One of the most visible is the paradox of entry-level jobs. Although presented as opportunities for recent graduates, most require prior experience. According to LinkedIn data, more than 40% of vacancies labeled as entry-level in 2025 require at least 2 years of experience, while 22% demand 3 years or more. This requirement contradicts the purpose of such positions and places young people in a vicious circle. They cannot get a job because they lack experience, and they cannot gain experience because they cannot get a job. According to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, nearly 55% of senior students in 2024 anticipated major difficulties in making a quick transition into the labor market due to these growing demands. But the arrival of AI has made this much worse in the tech sector.
Companies are eliminating formative entry-level jobs, the work handed over to artificial intelligence. Tech companies are leading the way.
In addition, starting salaries have not kept pace with the cost of living. The average starting salary for a recent graduate in 2025 is around $59,000, only about 2% higher than the previous year, which is far below the cumulative rise in basic housing, transportation, and food expenses. According to recent surveys, more than 68% of Generation Z youth believe they will not achieve financial independence until after age 28 or 30. Largely due to this economic pressure. Companies, for their part, show a clear tendency to retain current employees instead of expanding their workforces. In times of uncertainty, the priority is stability. A 2025 Gartner survey revealed that 70% of companies have chosen to freeze or slow down new hiring, focusing on retaining those already on staff. Much of this caution is related to doubts about tariff policy.
Trade war is officially on with retaliation by China.
All of that back and forth over trade and tariffs hasn't exactly been great for the economy.
The Trump administration reintroduced tariffs on imports from China and has threatened to impose new ones on European goods, generating fears of rising costs that could hurt profitability. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce points out that especially for small and medium-sized businesses, hiring is avoided until the effects of these changes on supply supply chains are clear. Inflation is another factor complicating the outlook. After reaching 9.1% in 2022, the highest in 4 decades, it has dropped to 3.2% in 2025, but the cumulative effects are still felt. The rise in costs also has led many companies to cut budgets and slow hiring.
And then following that, the interest rate hikes. That probably also slowed overall economic conditions with that impacts on hiring appetite.
According to the Conference Board, only 29% of employers plan to increase hiring of recent graduates in 2025, compared with 41% in 2021. The result is a reduction in opportunities precisely in the segment where recent graduates most need to gain access. The impact of these trends is not limited to the present, but has long-term repercussions. The Federal Reserve has warned of the risk of economic scarring, meaning the lasting negative effect suffered by those entering the labor market during crises. During the 2008 recession, graduates entering the market saw their earnings reduced by as much as 9% for more than a decade. Today, a similar phenomenon threatens to repeat itself. According to the Pew Research Center, nearly half of Generation Z workers believe they will not be able to retire at a traditional age due to their late entry into stable jobs.
With high inflation and a suddenly shaky banking system, some Americans are cashing out their retirement funds.
The unemployment rate in the 20 to 24 age group stands at 8.6%, compared with 4.3% for the overall workforce, clearly reflecting the disadvantage. The combination of
This is incredible. I've actually been contributing to storyblogs for 8 years now, over 800 of my clips available for download. But what really sets them apart?
reflecting the disadvantage. The combination of inflation, excessive experience requirements, and hiring freezes creates an adverse scenario for those just starting their careers. The number of vacancies decreases, entry filters rise, and the cost of living remains high. The National Student Clearinghouse reports that in 2025, college enrollment fell nearly 5% compared with 2020, partly because students increasingly question whether a degree guarantees a job.
I was told by a lot of people that I was going to get a job right out of college, and all of a sudden, there's no jobs.
A recent survey revealed that more than 60% of recent graduates consider themselves underemployed, working in positions that do not require a college degree. Added to this is the burden of student debt, averaging $33,000 per borrower, while the resumption of payments in 2023 has increased the urgency of finding stable income. However, that income remains elusive. All this also affects young people's mental health and motivation. Gallup surveys in 2025 show that only 29% of Generation Z workers feel engaged in their jobs, while 46% say they are unmotivated or pessimistic about their professional future. Anxiety about job security is evident. More than 60% believe they will have to string together multiple temporary or gig economy jobs before accessing a stable position.
For the last 3 years, millions of Americans have changed their work life. For many, that meant a remote or hybrid job, and for some, it meant throwing out the 9 to 5 altogether.
In addition, competition for available positions is increasingly intense. Companies receive a significantly higher volume of applications than a decade ago, meaning that even qualified candidates face long waits and strict selection processes. A 2025 Glassdoor study indicates that the average time to receive a response after applying for an entry-level job is 45 days, compared to 21 days in 2015. This delay not only generates frustration among young people, but also increases psychological pressure, forcing them to apply to multiple positions simultaneously, and often accept temporary or low-paying jobs while waiting for a stable opportunity.
It's literally just rejection, rejection, rejection. And it's always like the automated messages. I've only gotten like one where it's like, oh, you can do like a video interview, but that's like the first stage out of like 7 others. So no luck.
At the same time, internship opportunities, once the bridge to experience, have decreased by 12% between 2022 and 2024. Thus, the chances of meeting employer requirements are reduced even further. Taken together, these factors explain why Generation Z faces so many barriers to entering the labor market in 2025. Entry-level jobs are no longer true gateways. Starting salaries fail to keep up with the cost of living, and companies are reluctant to expand their teams due to the uncertainty of the economic and political context.
All right, we're going to go to Judge orders Trump to keep funding SNAP. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This is dual purpose supplement that's going to help with your skin, your nails, and your hair. help with your joint health and your cartilage, your musculature, and your bone density. This is a month supply. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with milk, but take it every day. Do some resistance training. This stacks really well with the vitamin C and magnesium that I offer. Drink it with filtered water, and therefore the collagen and the vitamin C will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen, very high quality. The typical amino acid profile is shown on the screen here. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. And also, get the Myotrol. Myotrol is very important to take, especially if you're 40 years of age or older, to help build muscle and maintain muscle. This will prevent the atrophy that is typically happening with your muscles when you get older. This will help with the youthful gene expression to build muscle. Do resistance training. This has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans for you to express the genes to build muscle and to maintain that muscle. And Myotrol helps with the mitochondrial health of your muscle so you have the energy to maintain it. So do resistance training and take the Myotrol. This stacks really well with Gladiator Barley also. So please go to my store and get the Myotrol. And by building up muscle and having that youthful gene expression, you're slowing down the aging process. In addition, when you're doing the resistance training, make sure that you do back training. Build muscles in your back. And the reason why is that's going to improve your posture, improve your lymphatic flow, and your venous flow back to your heart. Therefore, your health will improve. You'll have a better flow. You'll have less fluid accumulating in your legs. In addition, by building up the back muscles, it's going to help with the posture of your spine and your vertebrae. And doing the resistance training will also improve the density of your vertebrae. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take some of these supplements, follow my advice. It's a holistic approach. It's about proper diet, proper exercise. That means resistance training, cardiovascular training, stretching and balancing, learning new things, trying to calm yourself in with some sort of spirituality or mindfulness, drinking filtered water, staying away from processed foods and sugary foods. These are all holistic ways, stacking it with the proper supplementation to slow down the aging process. And if you're 40 years of age or older, you really need to take vitamin B complex. The first 4 B vitamins helps the health of their mitochondria, boost up your energy levels. Vitamin B complex revs up your cellular metabolism. And vitamin B complex has vitamin B12 to help to protect your neurons. Super important, especially when you get older. You don't want Parkinsonian problems. You don't want to have gait issues, and you don't want to have memory problems. So it's really important to stay healthy, approach this in a holistic way. And if you follow my advice, you're going to slow down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin B complex, the Myotrol, and the collagen. This is a powerful stack. This is helping with your skin and your bone density and your joint health. Myotrol is helping with building muscle and maintaining muscle. And the vitamin B complex is protecting your neurons and revving up your cellular metabolism.
Used always Geraldo, and the staff. It's interesting because, like I said, 42 million. When I first heard the number, when our coverage began of this, that is a lot. David Shapiro was on saying 1 in 8 in Pennsylvania, 2 million there, received these benefits, food stamps. Now it looks like maybe the president might have to find some money to keep paying them. And I've been wondering, and I think a lot of people have, if this is what kind of breaks things on the government shutdown. We'll see. What do you think?
You mean whether the courts can force it?
Whether they did, or whether even if they don't, the Congress says, all right, we got to figure something out here. If the courts make the president pay, maybe it's more likely it extends. I don't know.
This whole thing totally sucks. I have to say that in no uncertain terms. This is horrible, and as you went through the numbers, not just the SNAP, but the kids, the Head Start. Imagine Head Start losing its funding. Kids, the whole family is planning on the child going into the school or to the daycare center during the day. What do they do now? As you mentioned, there's two federal judges, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, who have ordered the federal government to use its emergency funding to keep these programs going. What is obvious, and as you have been reporting, Kamala, is that there's just not enough in the emergency basket to keep these these programs going for very, very much longer, but very deep into November, certainly. So it's worrisome. It's distasteful. It's lose your faith in government. It's just something that, these are grown adults doing this. These are not fly by night kids. These people know what they're doing. Thune and Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson. These are veteran legislators. They know exactly what's going on, and they just pointing at the other guy. You do it first. You do it first. Don't me. And what is lost in the equation is the suffering of a vulnerable population. It's just it's obscene. What's a kid who wants to think about running for president someday? He's watching these legislators, these names everybody knows, just playing a game. Whose is bigger? Playing a game and here's where we end up.
There's always what we do. But think about where we are kind of in this country, big picture. If you just, whatever they do, they'll have to get something figured out hopefully soon. But we were just talking last hour. There's many people, and so it's not just like the Elon Musk of the world. It's like you and I of the world that if you're invested in the stock market over the years, you're doing great, okay, because it's at a record high. And then now these numbers highlight how many people are not doing great. People working with jobs, working middle class, working middle poor, whatever label you want to put on it. And now we're having these conversations, and no wonder we are, by the way, in New York City about what we need to do about it. Affordability, everybody, maybe the Mamdani solutions are not what some people like, but the problem has been identified. So anyway, Mike Johnson was asked about and was speaking about Mamdani and whether there's a larger kind of movement growing that is socialist in nature, maybe as a result of some of this. But anyway, here's what the speaker said.
SNAP and Medicaid and these other programs were intended to be a temporary safety net to help people get back on their feet, but they have been abused. And there are some big government advocates like the Marxists, like the socialists, who want the government to take over everything and supply everything for everybody. But guess what? If the government can give you everything, it can take it away as well. And your freedom is sacrificed. Socialism, don't get me started, has been a great scourge on humanity.
Great scourge on humanity, the Marxists, and he says New York's just the tip of the iceberg in all of this. So again, this is the big picture, the arguments about what we should do. What do you say?
Well, I'm glad that he had his chance to vent. I just wish that he would be more effective in terms of getting government back on its feet. It's easy to moan and groan, when you're putting the blame on the other side and ignoring your own role being played in this impasse. Well, I got news for the speaker. Yes, 22% of Democrats, according to Pew, are using the SNAP benefits. It's so what's that? One in five, more or less. But 10% of Republicans are also using SNAP. A lot of those big red states, the rural states where families have a very tough time making ends meet. And the fact that the government is kind to a sense. I mean, you need checks and balances. I applauded Elon Musk in that whole Doge effort. It was heavy-handed and seemed ill-timed and without lacking experience. But I like the ethos of it. I like the fact that they were conscious of the fact that government is wasting money and spending too much money and maybe hiring too many people to do a particular task that's unnecessary. I'm all for making the buck go as far as I can, but also there's people in this country, and you've been reporting, I think, very eloquently, Connell, that people who aren't high rollers, who don't have hybrid Bentleys.
The bottom line is this: There's an awful lot of American tax-paying dollars that went to illegal immigrants, and we have a $38 trillion deficit now. We cannot continue on with these social programs, especially for people that are not citizens. Now, if you're elderly, you should be taken care of. If you're a veteran, you should be taken care of. But everybody else, guess what? You're gonna have to start providing for yourself and stop depending on the government.
Who are not deeply invested, other than a college fund maybe for their kids or grandkids. I think when you look at Mamdani and what happened in New York and these kids turning out, yes, Gaza.
The moment that his guess what? The way he feels as though there should be more money, or money should be continue to be spent on programs that are being abused. Well, why don't we just overtax people like him? Just people with mustaches. Congress can have a tax on people that have mustaches. All right? Or, stupid lawyers that have mustaches. All right? The moment that you have a government that's starting to tax people that are saying, spend the money for these people, they'll say, stop spending. That's the true litmus test. Right? When you start taking the money away from them, they'll start saying, no, let's not have those programs anymore.
But, there is the affordability crisis is exactly that. It is a crisis. It's a crisis where you can't go to a restaurant.
But the thing is that they're not solving the problem. It's just one decade after another, after another, after another crisis. So maybe what their means to try to mitigate the crisis or to try to alleviate the crisis is making it worse. We don't have the money, therefore we have to kill the program.
Not even go-go restaurant. You go to the markets, you try and get order the bulk stuff. Now, what's the lady with the void SNAP card gonna do tomorrow? All right, the kids are home now. All right, Saturday. What are they gonna eat Saturday night? What about that's Sunday, and then you into next week, and everybody now is looking to the election on Tuesday. So that we keep. But the little lady with the SNAP card is the one who's going to be left behind. I think that's it's deplorable. It really it's something that's so frustrating. You understand why people hate politicians.
Yeah, they move money around for the troops, and now the judge says they should do the same here. So maybe that's a patch for a little while, but big picture, Congress has got to figure something out. Thank you, Geraldo, as always, the great Geraldo Rivera.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
Another clown, Cuomo, the mayoral candidate's brother from CNN. All right. I believe he is also a lawyer, but classic example, he leaves CNN and what does he do? He's working for News Nation. What's his skill set? What skill do you have? What can you build? What skill set do you have? Oh, his skill set is to tell you how the real world is. Really? Let's listen to this terror plot that was foiled in Michigan.
If your CFO wants an updated forecast, just copy last month's tab, update your drivers, and refresh all your links. Or just use data rates. It pulls live data from your ERP, CRM.
I do want to get to another big story that we have been covering here over the last several days. Take a look right here, as this is out of the Detroit area. Now, FBI Director Kash Patel saying that his agency foiled an apparent terror attack plot that appeared to be planned for this Halloween weekend. This was the statement right here posted by Patel on social media Friday as he wrote that multiple suspects were arrested in Michigan in connection with that plot. We do have this video right here on your screen. Take a look here. You can actually see it out of Dearborn, Michigan. That is where video shows federal law enforcement at several locations around Metro Detroit, including at this home here. Computers and files could be seen carried out. While the FBI has not released further details, the Associated Press report the investigation.
Now, what did I say yesterday and the day before and the day before that? We got America needs, I don't know the details of this, all right? I do not know the details, but I said that there's a caliphate that's happening in the United States and also in Europe. And that I'm concerned that that caliphate will gain momentum in New York with Mamdani becoming mayor. Now, it's already happened in Michigan, and I stated the two cities that you got to worry about in Michigan, Dearborn and Hamtramck. Dearborn, Michigan, Friday.
In an online chat room with at least some of the suspects in the chat. The group is accused of discussing carrying out an attack around Halloween, calling it Pumpkin Day. Now, all of this here is still under investigation, so no other details have been released. I do want to bring in the attorney representing one of the people charged here. We do have Amir Maklik joining us live. Amir, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Good morning, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, the big question I do want to ask you here, what can you tell us about what your client is being accused of here?
Well, I can't say that at this point, no one's been charged with any crimes. So at this point, the U.S. Attorney's Office has arrested at least 2 individuals. My client is one of the individuals detained. We can't release the details as to who that person is just yet until and if the U.S. Attorney's Office brings charges in this case. So things are kind of rapidly developing still as the investigation continues. I do know for certainty that there was no mass casualty event or plot or terrorism act that was planned within the city of Dearborn or state of Michigan by anybody involved in this investigation.
What can you share about your clients', let's say, cooperation right now with law enforcement as they do work this investigation?
Our client has been fully cooperative with law enforcement. They've had the opportunity to speak with investigators in this case. My client's been cooperative in giving up electronic data information and forensic details from electronic devices and conversations I've had with the U.S. Attorney's Office by way of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And one thing that was mentioned, the Associated Press reporting that...
Now let's get this straight.
The plot was...
We don't know who it is, but that's the lawyer. I wouldn't be surprised that he's Muslim. I'm telling you, Americans need to fucking wake up. There's a caliphate that is starting to emerge.
Quote, inspired by Islamic State extremism. You're saying that is not the case. Your client not involved in any of that.
I don't know what the federal government has in their investigation at this point. I do know that there was no actual plot that was imminent or happening by any of the individuals involved here. Now, whether or not there's some perhaps online rhetoric or curiosity by these kids, we're talking about guys that are, 18 to 20 years old. So young adults and teenagers that may have gone a little too far on the internet in terms of their curiosity. But nobody is involved in ISIS or Al-Qaeda or terrorist organizations from this group of young men who were questioned yesterday by the FBI.
As far as how your client is being treated here, speaking specifically about your client, do you feel that your client is being treated fairly by law enforcement and by folks there on social media?
I think the FBI does a great job, and I think the FBI is probably looking into, certain patterns of individuals about what they're trying to research on the internet. However, the biggest issue for us is what's happening on the internet. I think it spirals out of control, and I think there's rhetoric. A lot of it is really hysteric when it comes to somebody that is of maybe even an Arab or Muslim origin or descent, and that is something that we're concerned about. We don't want to see online rhetoric become harmful to the community at large, including the Arab Muslim population in Michigan.
Really? Really? You ever walk through Dearborn? You ever walk through Hamtramck? Whites aren't really a accepted class of people. All right? People need to start waking up to this problem that we're having. Now, again, under our Constitution, there's a freedom of religion, but there's also a freedom from religion. And the problem with the Islamic takeover in Europe and the United States is that it's going to erode our constitutional freedoms to have freedom of religion. Now, Muslims have the freedom of religion to practice. They have a constitutional right. The problem is that they come into a population and they overrun it, and then whites leave, and then it metastasizes, and then they go to another area and another area, and they've been doing this ever since the expansion of Islam. For hundreds of years. This is the whole reason why there was this crusade between Christians and Muslims. Now, unfortunately, the Christians lost. They lost the crusades. But the problem here is that there is the faith of Islam, if taken to the extreme, is antithetical to our constitutional freedoms. But yet it is allowed to metastasize because it's protected by the Constitution. They're using constitutional freedoms to allow for it to metastasize, to fly underneath the radar. Now, their religion is protected by the Constitution, for sure, in the United States. And it should remain that way. But we also need to call it out that there is a Muslim takeover in certain cities. And if you don't believe me, look at what's happening in Europe. Look at what's happening in Dearborn. Look at what's happening in Hamtramck, Michigan. It's happening. Now, maybe these kids were just being idiotic and there was no real threat. Hopefully that's the case. But the thing is that there's an erosion between God, country, and family. Now, remember what I said about God, country, and family. They may have an affinity to God. The Muslims have an affinity to God. Maybe the youth, isn't as religious. But the thing is that they have an affinity to God through their religion. But do they have affinity to the country, the United States? Or do they have affinity to some sort of Islamic country called the Caliphate? They have an affinity to family. A lot of these Muslims have large families. But the thing is that you have to have all three pillars. You can't have two out of the three. You have to have some. If it's going to be God, country, and family, that country is that affinity to your country, meaning the United States in this case, is the glue of social cohesion to allow the peace and prosperity for all citizens. But when you don't care about the country, but you take all the benefits, if you don't care about the American flag, but you take all the benefits of its freedoms, then you're really not part of that pillar of patriotism. This is the problem with the Islamic faith. Now, if you're Muslim and you're a productive citizen and you care about the Constitution, you care about the United States and making it a prosperous nation, great. But if you got a group of people that are starting to coalesce in an environment and it's becoming less adaptive to American ways of life, then you're going to have problems. There's going to be problems that start to set in. And unfortunately, part of their religion, part of the Islamic religion, has built in it this ability to come in, push other people out, and then establish control, and eventually there is a weakening of the society that they invaded. It's a big problem. It's a big problem.
Any misconceptions about all of this that you want to make sure to clear up right now here live on the air?
I think that right now we need to remember that no charges have been brought, and that due process has to always be pivotal in one of these cases as investigations unfold. So let's hold judgment and see what this investigation entails, and let's see if charges are brought and what those charges are like.
And my last question for you here, where do you go from here? What is next in this whole process?
Just ensuring that the process is being played out legally and factually accurate, and moving forward in court if charges are brought.
Amir Macklin, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and speak a little bit about.
Our Constitution needs to protect all religions, but you also need to be protected from religion. All right? We have constitutional rights where we have these religious protections. But that doesn't give them, the Muslim community, the right to do an Islamic takeover of your society. People need to start pushing back. People need to start pushing back and start questioning about these things and preventing this coalescing in the society, because Hamtramck used to be all Polish. Now it's all Muslim. Dearborn used to be middle class America. Some blacks, some whites. Now it's almost all Muslim. Something is not right here. And when you have this Islamic takeover of a city, then you start to have the praying mosques and the call for prayer in the air and all this stuff. Then what happened? We're not an Islamic nation. We're a nation of laws where certain religions are protected. Religions are protected. But we are not an Islamic nation, period. All right, this dovetails really well with this whole diversity can weaken us comment by Cuomo. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. The clarity factor will get rid of that brain fog and help consolidate memory, help to speed cognition. Now, by taking clarity factor every day and drinking with filtered water, you're going to be able to concentrate on tasks. But you take it regularly, you're going to improve that neuroplasticity, improve your memory, improve the speed of your cognition. Please go to my store, take this clarity factor. It does wonders. It's really important to help protect your neurons. Now, omega-3 will help with your cardiovascular health. It's really important. It brings down inflammation and helps with your lipid profile, helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. When you do that, you're reducing plaque formation. Now, omega-3 also brings down that inflammation, systemic inflammation, that can help with your immune system too. And omega-3 reduces the stickiness of your red blood cells to prevent overclotting. So please go to my store, get the omega-3, take it every day, and help with your cardiovascular health.
Election day is just 3 days away, and one of the most closely watched contests is the New York City mayoral race between New York State Assembly member and Democratic Socialist Mamdani and former Governor Andrew Cuomo running as an independent and Republican Guardian Angels founder Curtis Sliwa. Recent polling shows the race tightening slightly, but Mamdani still leads Cuomo and Sliwa by double digits. Joining us now is former New York Governor and New York City mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo. Governor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I want to start right there. We're 3 days out from folks finishing voting here in your city. And I'm curious what you and your campaign are going to do at this point to convince people to change their minds. We're looking at all of these different polls, including a poll that your team sent that still has you 6 points behind. So what are you going to do at this point to change folks' minds?
Yeah, thank you for having me. First of all, 6 points is nothing, especially in these polls. And the polls in this race have been wrong from day one, but 6 points is nothing. It's almost the margin of error. And what we're seeing is an unprecedented. Yes, I said it's almost the margin of error. What we're seeing is an unprecedented turnout of voters. That's why I would take all these polls with a grain of salt. I think you're going to have an historic turnout of New Yorkers, which is good. The more voter participation, the better. But it's also a symbol of how concerned New Yorkers are about this election and the city and the state of the nation, frankly. So I have been obviously going all across the city. They are concerned about public safety. They want more police on the streets, affordability, more affordable housing. The only way to do that is to get government to actually build more affordable housing and stabilize the economy. Corporations have been leaving New York, people have been leaving New York, and they want to know that New York has a future and that we're getting those companies and those people back.
Governor Cuomo, I'm glad you mentioned public safety, affordable housing. These are things that as mayor, you're going to have to work with the governor of the state in order to get a lot of the things that you want done, not to mention, getting things from the state in terms of the budget. You and Governor Hochul used to be your lieutenant governor. She is now the governor, and she has endorsed your opponent. Do you think you will have a good working relationship with the governor to bring home the bacon to the Big Apple for the people of New York City if you become the governor? I'm sorry, if you become the mayor.
Yeah, but I know it's confusing, Jonathan. I'm with you. The first short answer is yes, as you said. Kathy Hochul, I selected as my lieutenant governor. I served with her. We have a nice personal relationship, a good professional relationship. Public safety really is in the purview of the mayor. How many police officers you hire? I want to hire 5,000 more police officers. Mayor Adams says we need 5,000 more police officers. Commissioner Tisch, New York City Police Commissioner, says we need 5,000 police officers. So that's within the mayor's purview, and that we can do. Affordable housing, yes, you have state funding. You also have federal funding, by the way, which is the mainstay on housing. But it's up to the city to actually get the housing built and sited and financed, et cetera. But on the bringing home the bacon, that is always the $64,000 question. And it's between the state and every city, right? As governor for 11 years, I got the budget balanced on time every year. Hasn't been done since. I had to make a budget deal with Buffalo and Rochester and Syracuse and New York City. My advantage is I know what the state can do. So I know, I'll know the budget from both sides of the table, if you will. We want our fair share from New York State. New York City is the economic engine for New York State. The state needs the city to do well, but I also know what the state can do relative to the overall context. So I think that gives me the advantage.
Governor, I want to ask you about a moment you just had that reminded me another moment in 2008, when Senator John McCain was at a town hall when a supporter called Barack Obama an Arab, and she told him that she couldn't trust Obama. McCain responded immediately. He took the microphone back and he said, "No, ma'am, he's a decent family man, a citizen that I happen to have disagreements with sometimes." He was obviously widely praised for that moment. It was a moment of moral leadership. Last week,
McCain did that because he was afraid of the blowback. And also, Barack Obama kind of is like flies under the radar as a communist, all right? But with Mamdani, he's flashing red communist, and he's saying it. Mamdani is going to destroy New York.
we're on Sid Rosenberg's show when he said Zohran Mamdani, when he talked about Zohran Mamdani, and he said, God forbid another 9/11 happens. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat? He'd be cheering. You laughed. You said it was another problem. And then the very next day, Mayor Adams stood next to you and warned about Islamic extremism if Mamdani wins.
Yep.
And you stood there and you nodded along. You've now had a week or so to unequivocally condemn these remarks. Will you do so right now on camera? And why didn't you have your John McCain moment?
Well, John
Totally
McCain-
different. Totally different. Totally different. One, Barack Obama flew underneath the radar of his socialism. And actually, Mamdani is much worse. Both are Marxists, but Barack Obama is a little bit less of a Marxist. All right? But we're talking about different generation. Barack Obama was baby boom generation, not Gen X. Baby boom generation. And so he's like a baby boom generation Marxist. But where you're talking about a millennial Marxist, well, wait a minute. That's different. That's like Stalin. That's like Lenin.
May rest in peace, a total respect for. If a supporter of mine said that, I would have said exactly what John McCain said. I was on a radio show with a radio commentator who made that comment as a joke or
stop.
as he said it.
He's backtracking.
He's not my supporter. He's a radio commentator. I don't normally, and I don't think normally we hold elected officials or politicians to correct a comment from a journalist.
Right.
I don't remember I don't believe the mayor, and excuse me, I don't believe Mayor Adams ever said that, unless I missed it, but I don't believe Mayor Adams ever said that Mamdani was an Islamic extremist. I don't believe he said that.
No, but he
said
did
the
not.
opposite.
He warned about Islam. Well, then I'll ask you point blank here. I mean, my question in my words: do you condemn Islamophobic comments about Zohran Mamdani unequivocally?
100%. 100%.
No, I don't. The reason being is that he wants to destroy Israel. He's not for he's for the Palestinians. He's for Hamas. He's for Hezbollah. That's for one thing. Secondly, and independent of Israel, because I don't really care about Israel. He's part of a caliphate to try to weaken America from within. That is there is a concerted effort to do this. And it's kind of strange because it's partially Islamic takeover, but also there's a Marxist part to this. Why doesn't Mamdani say that he doesn't support the radical Islamic community? Why doesn't he say that? He doesn't because he's afraid. He's afraid. He's afraid to tell his people, tell his supporters something that whites want to hear, but his community doesn't. Did Mamdani denounce Islamic terror? Did Mamdani denounce Islamic takeover of countries or of cities? No.
I condemn Islamophobic comments, anti-Semitic comments, racist comments, bigoted comments, anti-Italian comments, of course. You know, New York, as New York governor for 11 years, attorney general,
You have to look in the mirror and say, that's cancer, and that's bad for the society, and you need to get it out. Mamdani is that individual. It's part of an Islamic takeover that's slow but growing in the United States. It's metastasized in Europe. And in addition, it's coupled with an erosion of capitalism and pushing Marxism, which may actually be even more pernicious than a caliphate. Just low T. He's low T, a low T Italian, probably because he ate too much pasta and isn't willing to really stand up and say, this is the red line. We're not going to break, and we got to stop a caliphate from metastasizing in the United States, and we have to hold the line here and stop Marxism. That's what I want out of a candidate. We are going to stop Marxism. Period. No. We got a dipshit. We got a dipshit here.
diversity is our strength, but it can also be a weakness. So you have to work very, very hard to make sure you're always keeping people united. And there's always flare-ups among different races, religions, creeds for one reason or another. After COVID, we had hostility towards the Asian community. So yes, I've always been there to unify people, and I condemn and pass the strongest hate crime law in the United States of America, by the way.
Governor, I want to make sure and give you a chance to correct the record if you didn't mean to say this. Some of you said diversity can also be a weakness. What did you mean by that?
Diversity can be a weakness if you have antipathy among groups, Jonathan. If you have racism or anti-Semitism, etc. So then you'd have friction, right? Which we have had in New York. And so you have to work very hard to keep it as a positive and to make sure that it's not a negative and you have zero tolerance for any racism,
The problem is DEI and diversity ends up being a policy of groupthink and not diversity of thought. Because what they want you to do is to say everything's relative, and you shouldn't, be rocking the boat too much because we need diversity. So therefore, you can't be outspoken and push process. So diversity thought is leading towards having Marxism being perpetuated in a capitalistic society like New York. That's what diversity brought. Diversity is bringing Marxism to New York and trying to destroy capitalism. Diversity. This is what diversity is doing. And that anyone is going to, if anyone stands up and says, stop the Marxism, this is a capitalistic society, it's a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Oh, you're not diverse enough. You're not willing to bring in the Muslims. And then all of a sudden the cancer starts and there's a metastasis and all of a sudden you have a caliphate and you've lost your country. Cancer cells are diverse. Should we have them in our body? Really? It's diversity. It must be good. Well, what happens when certain people are a cancer cell?
Anti-Semitism, etc.
And Governor Cuomo, really quickly, I want to get this with my producer engineer, let you go, but you know, Democratic voters have been kind of clear since the 2024 election that they want fresh blood, they want non-establishment figures. You know, you are someone who's a former governor, long family history in the state of New York. I think, you know, it would be honest to say that you're a member of the establishment. Why do you believe that you would
Hold
be
on.
exception
Another
to
thing with diversity, another thing with group dynamics with diversity is that you have individuals that, because of a diverse group, you don't want to project your true thoughts because you're afraid that it's going to upset the group cohesion. But you also have these factions within a diversity group, all right, where blacks may coalesce with other blacks, Asians may coalesce with other Asians, and let's say whites coalesce with other whites, all right? And because of these factions, you may not be able to get really group consensus. So diversity ends up becoming a hindrance for social cohesion. So one part of diversity problem is that you may have individuals that aren't willing to speak out. Another possibility is that you have this groupthink, subgroupthink that takes place that prevents a real dialogue because there's a ghettoization of ideas based on their different groups. So diversity ends up becoming segregated. And this has happened in larger organizations. Now, another possibility, which is a utopic possibility, is that people actually listen to each other and that the experience of the group, of a diverse group, lends to a more efficient solution to whatever they're looking at, whatever they're trying to decide. But a lot of times, diverse people, if you have a diverse group, you may not have competence. And so you may have 40% that are incompetent and 60% in the group that are competent. It's a big problem. So diversity isn't necessarily a good thing for society.
We're hearing from Democratic voters, they want anti-establishment candidates.
Yeah, I get the general rule, Jonathan. We want fresh blood. We want a fresh face. I get it. New York City, the mayor is an important job, and people want to be safe. People want affordable housing. People want to see the economy working. And in New York City, you can have a major crisis at any given time. A couple of days ago was the anniversary of Hurricane Sandy.
It would be lovely to have an experienced individual that didn't have moral pitfalls. But just to have someone that looks different, like Mamdani, doesn't mean that he's going to be a good leader. Just look at what happened with Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a terrible president. Now, he wasn't as bad as Biden, but Biden didn't have a brain. Barack Obama did have a brain. Looking different shouldn't be the litmus test if you're going to be a leader of a society. Especially if you look different and you don't even know the difference between a constitutional republic and a democracy, or who John Locke was, or the whole idea of life, liberty, and property. And it's a big problem when you're pushing Marxism in a capitalistic society. What the hell? I mean, New York is going to go into the land of the shithole with Mamdani. But brought to you by a diverse dipshit.
And 50 people died. I don't think they want a mayor who has no experience or ability to do the job. And Mamdani, literally, this would be his first real job besides being a two-term assemblyman. Never managed anyone. And I think that is giving New Yorkers real pause. In this city, it can be a scary city, as you know, Jonathan, and you want someone in that seat who can handle whatever comes up. Experience is not a bad thing, Jonathan.
Right. No, that is correct. And this is Jonathan now. It was Eugene who was asking you those questions. Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York, thank you very much for coming to the weekend.
Yeah, how could you forget the afro? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is going to boost up your immune system, so you're not a fucking crazy liberal. Magnesium and zinc will also help your brain function, so you don't turn into a Marxist. Vitamin C and magnesium boost up that immune system, help with your skin and your brain function. Magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. That's going to be super important, especially during the fall and the winter season. Take the vitamin C and the magnesium and zinc, boost up that immune system, especially in the fall and the winter. But by boosting up your immune system regularly throughout the year, you're slowing down the aging process. Take this stack, really important, especially in the fall and the winter. All righty, let's continue on. But I can't stand liberals. I can't stand liberals. I can't stand their woke policies. And I sure as hell don't want a caliphate that's ushering in Marxism in New York City. What the hell? What the hell did New York City was attacked by Muslims during 9/11. Now, yes, there was an inside job and blah, 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 blah. All right? And we're gonna elevate a Muslim to be a mayor that has no experience and pushing Marxism. What? In the context of a caliphate metastasizing in Europe and in the United States, aka Hamtramck and Dearborn, Michigan. That's diversity for you. Did diversity make this country better? Did this whole diversity, did it make the country safer? Especially in the context of the last 5 years? No. Immigrants have made this country better. I actually think that immigrants to the United States that really have a true affinity to the flag and the Constitution and trying to better the society are going to be the future of America. And that's a good thing. That part of diversity, but that's working hard. That's just having the skill sets and assimilating to that American ethos. Most Muslims don't do this. It's not part of their religion. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. So does diversity help America? If they're willing to assimilate, but if they're coming here to destroy, no. Now let's just say they're American citizens, and you have a diverse, let's say, corporate culture. Is it better for the company? Depends. Do you have the groupthink issue? Do you have this inability for individuals to speak out because they're afraid to be ostracized because it may be an anti-diverse comment or anti-diverse thought? What about the groupthink that happens at the subcultural level between different ethnicities? And that does happen, trust me. Does that make the corporation better? What about the wokeism, the diversity when they were pushing new branding that alienated their base customers? Cracker Barrel is a perfect example. Look at what happened with Victoria's Secret when they started doing the lingerie line of a bunch of fat chicks. What about the issue with Bud Light? Destroyed an American brand. They'll never come back. diverse CEO or a diverse communication marketing department. Destroy brands. Go woke, go broke.
The Microsoft Studio is automated with PDF voices and AI agent to space for a contract or reviews. Find its difference and matters to
Right.
it is able to compare.
Military families turn to food banks as shutdown hits SNAP benefits. But we have tons of money for illegals. We want to have a diverse society. We want a woke society. America should be the smorgasbord for the world. All you can eat. But eventually you run out of money. And now our veterans, our military, our elderly are hurting. Believe me, I prefer to make sure that our elderly and our veterans are supported than any illegal alien. But you say that to a woke, diverse group of people, you say that to an ultra-lib and they have a hissy fit.
State value system provisions and expense. So you can do that and do that with the all new after that.
Momentum, acceleration, embrace the pursuit. David Yerman Shutdown Collection.
The Trump administration is finding an 11th hour solution to make sure active duty service members get paid today. Unfortunately, many military families and veterans are preparing to turn to food banks when food stamps benefits run out tomorrow. Brooke Taylor is live for us in Dallas. So Brooke, civilian families feeling it too. Our focus right now on where you are.
Hi, Harris. Well, first off, everyone loves payday, and thankfully, military members woke up and they got paid today. But there is growing anxiety that could stop soon. The Armed Services YMCA is seeing a massive surge right now as many troops brace for the possibility of not getting paid. Lines stretch outside of a food pantry we visited in Killeen, Texas, right near Fort Hood, with soldiers, their families, and young children waiting for those doors to open. The CEO of the national nonprofit says demand at these pantries has jumped 30 to 70% since the government shutdown started. The biggest uptick right now is happening in areas where there's a lot of these junior enlisted service members. Many of them live paycheck to paycheck.
Many folks are deployed right now overseas from Fort Hood or from other locations. And the last thing you want to have when you're deployed overseas is be worrying about the next paycheck and how do you take care of your family who are back wherever they live in the U.S.
The CEO says the majority of service members are motivated to serve their country and make a difference, not by money. In fact, many families are struggling already. Check this out. The starting base salary for an entry-level soldier is just over $25,000, and a 6-year staff sergeant makes less than $50,000, not including bonuses and other benefits. Well, the Trump administration tapped into different funding streams to make sure that all troops got paid today. But there is uncertainty about how long that's going to last, and Republicans are blaming Democrats.
I know that the Trump administration is desperately trying to figure out how we pay the men and women that are serving our country. Unfortunately, Chuck Schumer, this could be solved if he just would allow a number of his members to support opening the federal government. But he's so scared of primaries from the far left that he is willing to hold not just our service members, but the American people hostage.
And thousands of active service members also depend on food programs like SNAP that are set to run out tomorrow, Harris.
All right, Brooke, thank you very much. You have served. You know, I'm the child of a military officer, a combat pilot. we see things a certain way in this instance. They continue to serve no matter what, because that is their job and they will not walk away.
Yeah, my father's career Army, went to Vietnam, and it was the proudest thing he did outside of his family. And you're right, they're going to serve. They enlist. They serve to protect us.
Like I said, the elderly and our veterans should be taken care of. Make sure that they have their Social Security. Make sure that they have their health care. And I don't want illegal aliens taking our American tax-paying dollars and taking our resources away. We spend way too much money on illegal aliens. And that's brought to you by crazy, ultra-liberal fucking policies. So you want to talk about a shutdown? No, why don't we talk about all the fucking wasted money that we've had over the years on illegal aliens?
This is the part of this game that it's at some point you say, okay, in DC, it's gone too far. And I honestly believe that Democrats are just playing the blame game, just hoping that with the help of the media, the public will blame Republicans and Donald Trump. And I think that's unfortunate now that especially it widens out and starts to affect a lot of people beyond non-essential workers. It's ridiculous. It's unnecessary.
Well, look, one of the things, Rosanna, that viewers are coming up to me and asking about is this idea of if they can't talk to each other and everything is on the line, what does it look like when it's not? And this is a lot of watching the sausage making, and people don't need to see this much, they tell me.
You know, politics has really gone so crazy in DC, and I keep thinking, if these legislators had their paycheck taken away during this period, would we have come to a resolution a lot quicker? Why can't we do that? I think that would make them come to the bargaining table and settle this a lot quicker. But, you know, I keep thinking about the people who are affected. You know, we send these men and women overseas to fight for
And
our
this,
freedoms. And
you know what's interesting is that this is a man-made catastrophe based on politics, the shutting down of the government. Just imagine when there's less jobs available because of AI. And the whole job market turns into not just a cyclical unemployment, but a structural unemployment. This is just the trailer of what's coming.
come back to an empty refrigerator. I mean, this is not about politics. This is about values. It's terrible what's going on.
Imagine your team only bigger, much bigger. Imagine a dedicated solution center, expanding your technical expertise.
It looks terrible what's going on.
I want to keep it there. When this came up at Sean Hannity's town hall last night, he looked at me and he looked at the audience and he said, we should all go out this weekend and help. You know, Table to Table is large in our state, but there are food pantries and banks across the country they're amazing organizations and they can do so much. And any kind of way that we can help them this point, we grew up on military posts. We know we jump in, and I know Americans are awesome and that they will do what we can this weekend. But that's what this is about, all right?
I mean, so let's talk about SNAP. I agree with you, actually, Harris. I think people should spend.
I think people that need help, especially American citizens need to help out, you know? But I'm against the food pantries for illegal aliens. I'm against people helping individuals circumvent the law to establish themselves in the United States illegally. And this is part of the problem. They soaked up so many of the resources that it's caused problems. Now, yes, the immediate cause of the problem of the SNAP is due to the shutdown. But there's a larger issue here, and that is there's the use of taxpayer money for illegals. There's use of taxpayer money that's inefficient, that has led to us to have a $38 trillion deficit. And it's our tax-paying money to pay the interest on that debt. So why don't we wake up and say America first and Americans first, period.
weekend, everyone's gonna go trick or treating tonight, give out candy, like actually go help in your community. But on SNAP, the administration currently holds about 5.5 billion in the SNAP contingency fund that covers just about half of November's benefits. So it is clear that Republicans and Democrats are not going to agree on something in the next 24 to 48 hours. The Trump administration today could use those contingency funds like have been used in the past to make sure that people don't go hungry. They could do that today. The second thing I would say about SNAP, when you realize how many Americans rely on it for their monthly, weekly, monthly food bills.
42 million.
That is also.
That seems that there's abuse that's happening. Now, is it out of that 42, how many are illegal? I bet a lot of them are. But even if there's none, there's just seems to me that there's a over-reliance on this. How many of these 42, think about this. How many of these 42 million people that are on SNAP have a new iPhone? Or a new iPad? Or fast fashion clothing? How many? Bet a lot. Bet a lot.
Perfectly depressing to me that inflation is still too high, food is still too expensive. People are relying on this government program, which I think is a fantastic program, but the goal should be to continue growing the middle class, to get inflation down so people don't rely on a government benefit. And that's not happening right now. So look, Democrats have said anytime, any place, they will negotiate with Trump and the White House and congressional Republicans to reopen the government. The Republicans just want the Democrats to cave. And that's not
what Schumer has voted to pass the bill.
They're not
like the one who voted 13 times.
The Republicans are not negotiating with Democrats. They just want to force Democrats. Democrats have said, you need our votes.
It's the other way around. It's the other way around. And look, that emergency money they could do, but you just said it runs out in November. We don't know how long this is going to go. This ties with the longest shutdown in history on Monday.
People are not hungry now, and the Trump administration could do that now.
Well, I think that's something that we could all agree on is that this issue of military pay is the single issue that should get Republicans and Democrats together to reopen the government, not holiday travel, which is probably what it's going to be, but this specific issue. Thankfully, the Pentagon was able to shift some funds around so they'll get this paycheck now, but the fact that that was even a question.
And a donor.
Yes, and a donor. And it was a question mark when, like you said, Rosanna, that Congress was getting paid is one of the reasons why the congressional approval rating is so low. I mean, they got to get together and figure this thing out now.
Is it reality that House members would not get paid this point? I mean, all the focus right now is on the senators. So that part of the chamber, yes, the other one, no. What is the reality?
I'm not 100% sure, but I do agree if they have skin in the game, not just stop them from getting paid, but stop them from trading the stock market with all the insider money. All both sides. They're all becoming millionaires, and that's why they don't give a damn.
Okay, well, let's stop there.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily.
Okay, let's listen into MSNBC talking about authoritarianism. Sure, that's going to be anti-Trump. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans. Lignans will bring down inflammation, help with your immune system and your endocrine system, and also soak up free radicals. This is very important to boost up that immune system, help with your cardiovascular system, and by bringing down inflammation at the cerebral level, you're helping your neurons. And ashwagandha root, super important to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. By taking ashwagandha root, you're helping your cardiovascular health and your immune system.
The New York Times editorial board is out with an expansive, interactive piece this morning asking this question: are we losing our democracy? In it, the editorial board lays out 12 benchmarks of what it calls democratic erosion, from the stifling of dissent to the persecution of political opponents. The editorial board argues that the United States has regressed on all 12. The piece concludes this way. The United States is not an autocracy today. It still has a mostly free press and independent judiciary, and millions of Americans recently attended the No Kings protests. But it has started down an anti-democratic path, and many Americans, including people in positions of power, remain far too complacent about the threat. Joining us now, MSNBC senior political analyst and Pod Save America contributor, Alex Wagner. She's the host of the recently launched podcast, Runaway Country, presented by Crooked Media. Alex, so great to see you.
You too.
Today. Thank you and congrats on the podcast.
Thank you.
Let's start there. I mean, the themes in that editorial are some that I know cover, in the podcast and elsewhere. What do you think? Where is the country right now? Are we sliding down? Is the New York Times right to be sounding alarms?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would argue you should maybe sound them a little louder. I don't think we should be wasting too much time debating where on the slide towards full-blown authoritarianism we are, but we should just acknowledge that we are in a very dangerous place in terms of the survival of liberal democracy and a representative government. The show is, I think, trying to tackle a certain amount of numbness that I think is set in among the American public to a degree, just because Trump's authoritarian moves are so rapid and they're so continual, that I think it's desensitized people to the ways in which they're eroding our basic freedoms, and I think it has become so vast, the degradation of the institutions, the encroachment upon basic civil rights, that people have a hard time getting their heads around that. And so one of the ways we're trying to, I guess, shake people out of their slumber, if you will, is by focusing on people in the
No. She's doing a podcast that is socially polarizing, so she gets eyeballs. So does she really believe that the country is really going to authoritarianism? It's not, because of the branches of government. It can't go into it. She's going to have a lot of opinions, but no facts. What did Trump do that is that goes against what our founding fathers wrote in the Constitution? Did he do anything illegal? And if he did, if his policies were against the Constitution, did the court say, oh yeah, you can do it even though you really can't? No. They basically told the president many times, not always, but many times, you can't do that. And so he stops. That's the way the system's supposed to work. And if it's so egregious, why isn't the legislative branch impeach him? Oh, the Republican Party is not going to do that. Well, perhaps it's not authoritarian, and it's just that the Democratic Party just doesn't like Trump and what he's doing. Now, think about it. We're moving more towards authoritarianism under the Democratic Party than under the Republican Party. With the stacking of the judges that Biden wanted to do, where it tries to guarantee, some sort of ultra-lib new understanding of the Constitution. Would you rather have an originalist, or would you rather have a morphing Constitution interpretation that meets with the zeitgeist of a particular woke mindset? I'd rather have judgment based on the original intent of the Constitution, an originalist point of view of the Constitution. So which side is more authoritarian? So she's going to get a lot of eyeballs because she's created a polarizing subject matter. Even though the bottom line is this: Trump is not authoritarian yet. Now, does that mean that he will be? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm not worried about that. You know why? Because we have balance of powers. Just trust the system. The balance of powers will prevent this authoritarianism.
who are at the center of these headlines and policies, whether they're immigration court judges, whether they're soybean farmers, whether they are air traffic controllers, whether they are activists who are fighting gerrymandering in red states. And I think one of the things we have to do as journalists is tell the stories, because the way people become engaged, and I think honestly emotionally attached enough to stay engaged, is by—
You know what journalists should do? Get a fucking brain. You got a journalist degree because you're a stupid idiot. Can't be an engineer, so you end up being a journalist. Fucking hey.
attaching themselves to stories by feeling the stakes. And the human story is the most universal story, and understanding these policies and politics on the most basic experiential level, I think, is key to re-engaging with a lot of these topics that seem vast and sort of in the distance and like not immediately as dangerous as they actually are.
So Alex, Claire.
Oh, maybe she should have like learned Greek ethics, maybe a little bit of philosophy, maybe about the history of the fall of the Roman Empire and the wisdom of the founding fathers with their three branches of government that are co-equal, and the idea of our Constitution. We went through a civil war, and we didn't have a government that completely dissolved into a tyrannical regime. We'll be okay. We're not going to go through authoritarianism. It's at least not in our lifetime. All right? But you'll have a lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't like that policy from Trump. He's an authoritarian." It doesn't matter if you like the policy or not. Is it legal? And there's a big problem here, and that is the debt. The debt that we have is too large. We need to bring it down. These socialistic programs that we have, the Medicare, the Medicaid, the Social Security, it needs to be truncated. There needs to be a slow ramp down and eliminate the programs. Now, it may take generations to do that. That's really what she should be talking about. No, we're going to start a podcast during the midterm elections to try to galvanize liberals to fight against Trump and win back the seats in Congress and in the Senate for the Democratic Party. Brought to you by MSNBC. Why not have a podcast, honey, about how liberal policies are bankrupting the country? Why don't we have a podcast talking about the wokeism that is destroying God, country, and family and weakening the country? Why don't we talk about there's something psychologically wrong when you have a bunch of blue-haired liberal, ultra-liberals pushing gender dysphoria? Because it's weakening the country.
That has the next question.
Alex, good to see you.
It's so good to see you.
So here's the deal. You are out there talking to people around the country, maybe more so than any other journalist that works for and with our network. I want to know, when you talk to people, it feels like that we are really worried about democracy. Those of us who pay very close attention every day, those of us who have been part of government.
Honey, we do not have a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. I thought, oh, wait a minute, you're a journalist. Now I understand. You're stupid.
And we talk about it a lot. But when I go to the grocery store, that's not what people are talking about. Yeah, they think Trump's a jerk. And he's doing stuff he shouldn't be doing. But they really, I mean, whether you're a soybean farmer that you mentioned, they're worried about their markets for soybeans. If you're in a rural community, which 94% of the counties that are rural in this country voted for Donald Trump. You're worried about your healthcare costs and whether or not there's either going to be a.
Yeah, but we also have to go through the pain of unwinding the transnational capitalist globalist agenda, where it weakened our manufacturing base, and bring back the economic clustering. And in the process, you have to cause damage. You know, when you have a tumor and you go in to take it out, do you think you only take out the cancer cells? No, you got it's called a margin. All right, there's a margin region around the tumor that you have to take out. So you're making sure that you're taking out all the cancer, or to the best of your ability. And this is the reason why they do biopsies, to understand what kind of cancer you have and also if the margin's okay. So you're doing damage to healthy tissue too. So this is similar. You have to take out the tumor of globalization. And in the process, other collateral tissues are going to be damaged. And over time, they will heal. But in the long run, it's better for the country. But if you only focus on, well, that margin tissue is inflamed, that margin tissue is damaged, that margin tissue was cut out, oh, there's collateral damage and there's infection and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but you had to take out the tumor. But, yeah, but you had to take out the tumor. Oh, but you know, the soybeans, we're not selling enough soybeans now because of the tariffs. But you had to bring back manufacturing. So we have better economic clustering, more jobs, lower debt to GDP ratio, and we have the ability to maintain a war if needed against China. Oh, but we are not selling soybeans. This is the stupidity of a journalist. What's the big picture here? But. Bunch of dumbasses.
If there's an emergency, how are you seeing this threat to democracy land with these average voters out there where economics is real to them, but this seems theoretical to them at this point?
Well, I mean, I think we can unpack that a little bit, right? First of all, what Trump's doing to our trading partners, what he's doing in terms of diminishing America's role in the world, and also, you know, going back on the promise of America that stretches back decades.
Yeah, but those decades that she's talking about is the liberalization of markets through Thatcher and Reagan, the hyper-globalization that happened during Clinton, that led to a manufacturing base that was gutted. America built China through our FDI money, and we shipped our jobs overseas, and it was accelerated through Amazon and through Walmart. So you could buy cheap goods, but you can't have your kid get a good job now. You know, so you got to pay attention to that kind of thing. No. These people are so stupid. They don't even understand. They don't understand the damage hyperglobalization caused. Hyperglobalization was the problem, not globalization. Hyperglobalization. Big difference. Big difference.
That economic aggression that is part of a larger portfolio of tools to establish more of an authoritarian regime in the White House. So I don't think we should divorce the economic pain from actually the erosion of democracy writ large, right? And I think what.
So she wants a weakened executive branch so globalists can take over the United States? So she thinks that open borders is a great idea? She thinks that not having hegemonic power and losing our hegemonic prowess in the Pacific is a good idea? Is that what she's promoting? This woman is an idiot.
Talk to people. I mean, the focus of the show and the focus of my work as a journalist is to understand how people are feeling, not necessarily pain, but how they're engaged in the issues in their real lives, right? I'm not going to talk to the soybean farmer about, you know, the firing of DOJ career prosecutors, I'm going to talk to him about the economic pain and how that dovetails with his support or lack of support for Trump. Because I think we all need to understand.
Well, I think
how all of these
I think
policies-
I think surveying the individuals that are directly affected by policies is a good idea. But the way you frame it is super important. If it's always to demonize, especially during a midterm election, then you're a biased journalist. But if you're actually going to show equal time on the pluses and minuses of the anecdotal experience of these policies on American citizens, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But you also have to have it in a context of a larger policy structure. It's not just about soybean selling. It's about economic prowess for the United States. Wake up, honey. We're going to have a fucking war with China. Do you think that if we don't have a military industrial complex that's strong, that we will win? Because if we lose, we will lose our Constitution.
out at the grassroots level, at the immediate sort of human level. So you're going to hear about different topics, all of which I would argue are part of the erosion of our democracy, told by different narrators. Some of these characters are going to come back and forth in the show. I want people to get familiar with the American experience again, Claire, because I think one of the things we do just in this vast country that we live in is we've lost the sense of shared community, and that's essential to the democracy surviving.
Sadly,
well, I agree with that. I agree with that. We have lost it. But I don't want to be affiliated with a bunch of crazy fucking liberals. We need to get rid of crazy fucking liberals. But we also have to get rid of the crazy ultra-right wingers too.
There, but we thoroughly recommend the new episodes of the podcast Runaway Country, which are released every Thursday, and the Substack titled How the Hell with Alex Wagner. I love it. Available to read online now.
All righty. But because it's from MSNBC, I guarantee you it's going to be liberal. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. This soaks up free radicals. See, when you get all stressed out when you're watching the destruction of the country because of ultra liberals, you get inflamed, you start creating free radicals. Well, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. This is going to soak up those free radicals. Bring down that inflammation. And by doing that, you're going to improve your immune system. You're going to help with your cardiovascular system because you're reducing plaque formation. And you're going to help with your neurons because you're bringing inflammation down at the cerebral level and you're soaking up those free radicals and keeping those neurons healthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. Use discount 5. Save some money, all caps, discount 5, get $5 off, get a few supplements, follow my protocol, and slow down the aging process and boost up that immune system. And take turmeric, especially during the fall and winter season, and stack this with the ashwagandha root, the lignans. It's a powerful stack to slow down the aging process and boost up that immune system, especially for the fall and the winter. And don't be a crazy fucking liberal. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.